Well, let's talk about the type the SCP-3000 is. It's classified under Class A cognitohazards entity, which may cause severe mental alterations for those who look at it. Cognitohazards are hazards that are brought on by sight and are physical. For example, if you look directly into the sun, in which I highly don't recommend doing, you can easily go blind. But if you look at the sun long enough, it is called a cognitohazard. So just imagine that the government is hiding away something like that. Some people do believe that the SCP Foundation is a real thing, and these SCPs could be found in Area 51 or other hidden secret government hideouts. Moving into number 9, let's talk about how long this thing is. Well, the SCP-3000 looks like a massive eel, and it's actually impossible to determine the full length of it, but it is hypothesized to be between 600 and 900 kilometers. The head of the SCP measures roughly 2.5 meters in diameter, and sections of the body are as large as 10 meters in diameter. Just putting that into perspective here, the massive megalodon that we all know measures in at about 18 meters, so this thing is pretty much the size of just this creature's head. Pretty sure one SCP-3000 measures up to about 1 million megalodons. Alright, number 8, SCP-3000 likes to feed on anything, and yes, this includes us humans. The SCP-3000 is said to be found in the Bay of Bengal. Bengal's population is over 90 million people, so that is a lot of people who should be fearing this massive eel-like creature. I mean, I'm afraid of those eels that are just 2 feet long. I couldn't imagine coming face to face with one of these things. Well, lucky for us though, this creature is being contained by big ships with guns to keep regular people out of the Bay of Bengal, where it's located. Submarines are also in place to keep an eye on this creature as well. At number 7, the people that work for the secret agency have to be careful monitoring this beast of a creature, because when it eats people, it secretes compound that is released into the water that causes amnesia. So looking at this creature can give you massive headaches, and if you come close enough, it can alter your memories and dreams and even wipe them out completely. Imagine forgetting who you are or why you're guarding this massive creature, and all the memories you've ever had in your life could just be wiped out. Now that would be so devastating. A lot of researchers will also suffer from identity loss and memory loss. Number 6, the SCP-3000 has the ability of telepathy. So if you get close to it, you may never be able to escape from it because the SCP-3000 knows your every move. Also, this thing can teleport, so 1 second they're visible and then bam, they're gone. This just sounds like the scariest creature ever. Just imagine if coyotes or wild wolves are able to control our minds or even teleport. There would for sure be a lot more reported human deaths. Number 5, its digestive system. SCP-3000 are carnivores. So that means that this thing loves to eat flesh and meat. Typically, this SCP is a really lazy creature and doesn't move around too much, but it is able to move quickly when it wants to move in order to catch a prey, despite its long size. That means that no one is safe. But what makes this thing even more terrifying is the fact that SCP-3000 doesn't really need any food to maintain its biological functions. So yeah, he can basically survive for long periods of time without eating, and the end result of its digestive process is currently unknown. Number 4, powers and abilities. SCP-3000 is capable of destroying the entire race. Okay, no, seriously, it has a lot more powerful abilities that makes this creature absolutely terrifying. SCP-3000 has superhuman physical strength, mind manipulation, dream manipulation, resistance to being captured, mind control, secretes poison, it's immortal, does not require food to survive, and the list goes on and on. Actually, SCP-3000 secretes a constant cloud of liquid that causes a visibility around to appear completely dark. So that means that they can actually be right next to you and you have no idea. And if you were able to see them, it's too late. Number 3, individuals believed to have contacted the SCP-3000 are to be contained, quarantined, and processed at Area Site-151. Individuals affected by the SCP, well, they're to be held in containment indefinitely, because right now there are no known cures, and there may never be. This could mean for the rest of that individual's life. This could be like a life sentence. This is also the reason why many researchers don't want to research more into this classified creature, because the risks are just way too high for the reward. Moving into number 2, because this creature lives in the deep waters in the Bay of Bengal, we might not be talking about just one of these creatures. There could be hundreds. or maybe thousands. Keep in mind that humans have only explored about 5% of our oceans, some areas only 1%. So even though SCP creatures might just be fictitious, there could be creatures like this one roaming the depths of the ocean that we have no clue about. Hopefully technology advances and someday we'll be able to explore 100% of the ocean. But until that day, we should assume that there are scary, carnivorous creatures that are lurking at the bottom of the ocean waiting to sink their teeth into us. Finally, at number 1, this creature might be immortal. Now that might be a problem. Destroying this creature might be impossible and it might be able to live on forever. So SCP-3000 might have been around since the beginning of time, and they will be on Earth until the end of time. If this is true, that means that SCP-3000 is capable of living through some pretty harsh conditions. I just really hope that this thing has stopped evolving, because I'm pretty scared what if the SCP-3000 gets even bigger or smarter? What if they outsmart humans? We might have an SCP apocalypse on our hands, and in that case, the world might come to an end as we know it.
Coming in at number 10, we have SCP-618. Honestly, this SCP sounds just as useful as it sounds scary. This SCP was discovered in British Columbia, Canada, which I have to give a shout out to because that's my home province. It's good to know that there is some spectral activity going on out there. Well, there happens to be a crawl space in a home that is no ordinary crawl space. From the outside, it would seem that the crawl space is just a normal area tucked away in the corner of a home. But once you go inside, you will see that that is not the case. It would seem that the area extends infinitely in every direction, like an endless room. There is also strange webbing that reaches out over the walls that has a series of pictures hanging in the webbing with writing on the pictures. The previous owner of the house has been missing, and it's suspected they might have gotten lost in the endless void that is the crawl space. The total distance of this area is unknown, but everyone watching has to admit this sounds very helpful. You could have endless storage space right down there in your home. It almost sounds like it's worth having a supernatural entity in your home just to have that convenience. Coming in at number 9, we have SCP-5319, a massive event that has caused the appearance of several entities that seem like they want to kill us all. Wow, it didn't take long for this list to work its way over to world domination. SCP-5319 comes in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's an earthquake, sometimes it's a tsunami, sometimes it's a volcano exploding, and sometimes it's all of the above. But that doesn't really matter because the real threat is what it births. Large aggressive beings that have been called SCP-5319-1 and usually pop up close to densely populated areas and have thermal and nuclear capabilities that will attack these areas. The SCP Foundation has been successful in pushing these creatures back, but it would seem that the cause of summoning them is still unknown and their motivation is still unknown. All we can be certain about with these creatures is that they want the destruction of the human race, because when they arrive, it's an all-out war. The case files on these beings have been lowered in classification because every member of the SCP Foundation needs to be briefed on them. If enough of these beings appear, it could quickly lead to the end of the world. Coming in at number 8, we have SCP-2754. A massive festival on an island in the Pacific. The festival itself is the specific SCP, and it seems to be no danger to the public, but is able to influence its surroundings in a strange way. The festival is where a group of people that are native to this island will take a series of lanterns and tie them to helium balloons and then let them loose in the air. All of this goes normally until one of the balloons starts to glow purple. Then it will start flashing green, and then the whole sky will turn purple, the entire night sky. The next day, the sky will return to its normal color, but it is still unknown what force this group of people has tapped into to control the color of the sky. After this ritual is done, it would seem that nothing strange happens other than the changing of the color of the sky. To contain this supernatural information, the SCP Foundation has released a series of disinformation bubbles on this festival, saying that the changing of the night sky is caused by a light surge that is purely a scientific anomaly. Coming at number 7, we have SCP-4291, a sunken submarine that might be trying to cover the world in coral. It's unknown how this submarine made its way to the bottom of the ocean, but it would seem that it is Russian in design. Now, it's not the make and model of this SCP that has put it on today's list, but a couple other features that has everyone at the Foundation scratching their heads. There seems to be coral growing off of this SCP at an extremely fast rate, and all the coral in this sunken U-boat usually is found in warmer temperatures, which which is very strange. This coral seems to be growing outward, but the SCP Foundation has put a containment center around to try and stop the spread of this SCP. It would also seem that the former crew members of this ship will get reanimated every so often and just sort of float around the ship until they are destroyed. Coming at number 6, we have SCP-5265. This next one kinda reminds me of something from the Addams Family. Do you guys remember the disembodied hand that would walk around like a little spider? Well, this is close to that, except it's a whole arm. It has been severed from its whole body, and even though it should have no life left in it, it still manages to move around. It would seem that the hand still has some level of intelligence and is able to do small tasks like solve puzzles. It is also able to communicate via writing on paper. However, it does not know how to read Braille, and any attempts to communicate with this SCP have failed. Although it is creepy, it doesn't seem to be a major threat and continues to move around freely. How the arm is able to exist outside of its host is still unknown, but there have been some notes that suggest it still has some connection to either its past life or former body. Coming in at number 5, we have SCP-314-J. Not every SCP is going to try and take over the world or bend the laws of physics. Some SCPs are just going to challenge your ego and make you feel bad about yourself. This SCP is a math book, and when you open it up, there will be nothing there. That doesn't seem like a very useful book. Well, once you start looking at the blank pages, it will start to give you a plethora of mathematical information. Now, this isn't some secret code that will unlock the secrets to interstellar travel. Oh no, this book will start to give you hard evidence on why you suck. The title of the book is The Numerical Proof That You Suck, and every last page of the book will start to fill in with hard, irrefutable evidence backed up with every form of math on the planet that you indeed suck. Any SCP official with a fragile ego or confidence issues is not allowed to read this book, as it could send them down a spiral that will ruin them forever. That isn't the book you're going to want to pick up if you're a sad boy. Coming in at number 4, we have SCP-5842, an SCP that has one purpose and one purpose only: to get you to stop. That sounds actually kinda nice. Sometimes we feel a little bit overworked and it would be nice just to sit back and have some time to relax. Well, this also seems like the most stressful way you can force a person to relax. It's like telling someone you're going to light their car on fire if they don't take a nap. This SCP is a stop sign, but it's not just any ordinary stop sign. It's a stop sign that will appear out of nowhere and have some sort of supernatural influence over the person that it is haunting. It can appear in your car, it can appear in your house, and when you see it, you will stop whatever you're doing. The story that was posted on the SCP Foundation was someone who had it appear in their car, they immediately stopped driving, and then they started walking home. It was a 12-mile hike for them to get home. So as you can tell, this stop sign doesn't care about inconveniencing you. Coming in at number 3, we have SCP-5165. This SCP sounds like something that could be fun, but also could be the most dangerous thing on the planet. SCP-5165 seems to be some printer paper that was made in a factory in Romania. Pretty straightforward, there's nothing interesting about that, until you learn that you can fold this printer paper into the shape of an animal and it will become that animal. That's pretty gnarly. There's also some instances where the paper will be turned into whatever item it is folded into and bring with it some more items, or a man who goes by the name of Marius Grahorge. This guy apparently was killed in the same spot that the paper factory was built many years ago during World War II. Now, what I'm thinking is there's a ton of things you can make out of origami. What if you folded this paper into a dragon and then there was just a dragon on the loose trying to take down the world and trying to kill us all? That sounds like a bad time. Coming in at number 2 is SCP-5437. These are some of my favorite SCPs because they almost seem like they could be real. This SCP is a massive structure that could be somewhere around 6,000 years old. It was found in Paraguay, and it seems to be a massive temple of sorts. The full size of the structure is unknown because most of it still needs to be dug up, but it seems that the entire structure has some strange supernatural properties. Whatever is housed within the structure seems to age extremely slow. There could be a chance that something extremely old could be housed inside the temple, and there could also be the chance that whatever power is causing this anti-aging process could be housed and removed from the temple. That would make the best product to sell to middle-aged women who love to buy anti-aging cream. Why buy endless amounts of cream when you could buy a holy artifact that may or may not be cursed? And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have SCP-5106. And for the number 1 spot, I have picked the most Canadian SCP I could find. 1, because I gotta represent, and 2, because it has to be one of the strangest, strongest, funniest SCPs I have ever read about. SCP-5106 is a Canadian goose that has the full concept of the English language and can speak fluently. It also is very intelligent and can talk to anyone it wishes and uses the barter system. And if that wasn't powerful enough for you, it would seem that this goose also has the ability to control other animals. Now, whether or not the other animals simply understand the goose and then follow orders, or if they're under some sort of mind control is still unknown, and it would seem that the goose cannot control other humans or other more powerful species. But out of everything on this list, this SCP is by far the best new addition and is strangely powerful and super Canadian.
At number 10, we have SCP-2396. SCP-2396 is part of the Curious Mister series, although the SCP is the only miss of the collection of 20. Also known as Miss Sweetie, 2396 is an 8-foot female humanoid weighing 22 pounds with natural pink hair. On her thigh, she has a small tattoo that reads, "From Little Misters by Dr. Wondertainment," which is worth remembering. She needs to constantly be fed sugar. If not, she feels great pain. The only thing is though, when she does eat the sugar, she starts becoming unbearable to be around, but just for males. She produces little hard candies known as SCP-2396As, especially when she's stressed. Now these appear in densely populated areas and are harmless if ingested by females, but if they're eaten by males, then the men are slowly turned into life-size hard candy. Sometimes life-size hard unicorn candies. Yay! Nay. These then become totally subservient to women who can order them to do what they want. Now, while this sounds both fun and kinda delicious, turning half of the population into hard candy zombies would be pretty awful, and humanity could no longer reproduce unless there's some kind of creepy, sweet, sticky half-breed plot hole, but honestly, I'm not sure I want to be any part of that, or we should mention it here. Not very PG. Ugh. Galloping into number 9, we have SCP-805. I actually recently did a Life's Biggest Questions video on SCP-805. It is a hollow wooden horse made from twisted wooden branches and roots. It came trotting out of a forest one day and started infecting people that touched it. The SCP is now contained in the Foundation and is allowed in and out of a secured paddock to graze and gallop, but all those who tend to it have to have all of their skin covered for fear of infection. Touching it with bare skin will result in a rash similar to that which only comes from poison oak. Only it will start turning greenish, brownish, and a person will then start slowly turning into a living wooden structure themselves. Only they won't be able to move, they'll be rigid and stuck like a wooden statue forever. The horse seems to be a cute, sweet lover of contact, but if it was to fall into the wrong hands, it could start turning people into wood one by one. And what if there are more poison ponies out there? Also, is it really a nice horse, or is it a scheming trotter? Okay, we've had fun with candy queens and ponies, but shall we get serious? What about a spider lady that will eat you alive limb by limb? Serious enough for you? Coming into number 8, we have SCP-352. Oh, hello old Baba Yaga. I also made a Life's Biggest Questions video on her. She is a horrifying spider witch. SCP-352 is class Keter, which basically means that she'll kill you and she won't care. Before she was captured in a woodland in Russia, she had already murdered an entire village that we know of. She now resides in a locked cell and is serviced only by robots. Presenting as a decrepit old lady, SCP-352 is covered in tiny long hairs that grow at will. If touched, they infect humans with an enzyme that breaks down their logical brains. They are no longer able to perform simple cognitive tasks. Some even display signs of euphoria. It seems that SCP-352 then bites. She uses her hair as a web and then dismembers and eats her prey. Oh, and she can also run really, really fast, which means if she ever got loose, we may have trouble catching her. She may have her work cut out in terms of ending the entire world, but given enough time to grow enough poison hair, you know, maybe. Coming into number 7, we are getting reals, the red spot of Jupiter, SCP-2399. Sounds like I'm in a bingo hall. Ah, SCP bingo. Worrying. Did you know that Jupiter is home to a terrifying SCP? According to the Foundation, 2399 is a massive, complex mechanical structure currently located in Jupiter's lower atmosphere. Whatever it is suspected that it is an antimatter weapon that creates space-time disruptions and causes havoc with a planet's atmosphere. It can be observed as a large red spot. Now, scientists have us believe that the Great Red Spot on Jupiter is a storm that has been raging 22 degrees south of the planet's equator for nearly 200 years, but actually it's an SCP-2399 is thought to be damaged but has released drones to fix itself. It's thought that the SCP crash landed on Jupiter on its way to Earth, and its rebuild is almost completed. Does this mean the SCP will continue onto our planet? What is the purpose of its mission? We just don't know, but we do know that it can be used to disrupt matter, and we suspect, with our current available technology anyway, that it is indestructible to humans. Uh-oh. Ooh, next up we have one of my favourite SCPs, but rest assured it actually could end the world. Anyway, if it wasn't so dumb. But it is! Coming in at number 6, we have SCP-3740. 3740 is a humanoid male that was picked up drunk outside a bar in Turkey. He'd gotten into a brawl and blew out the front of a building. It seems that the SCP is known as Asher God of the windswept plains and soaring skies, and does indeed have incredible cosmic power. For example, he can control birds, control air pressure, change temperatures. He can also create 500 km/h winds, as well as create cyclones. Asher loves being worshipped and doesn't pose a threat to those he also believes are gods. He's very gullible. He's contained in a cell of the Foundation decked out as a luxury floor of a castle. He's quelled by regular feasts and drinking, and often tries to woo those who dine with him. Foundation members must roleplay as fellow gods, which he believes. He also believes that he is in an Anglian chateau that he conquered himself. Now, if he realizes that actually he is in containment and not in the company of fellow gods, he could absolutely lose it and use his power to break free and cause havoc on Earth. I still kinda love him anyway. Nikola Tesla, mate, what you got for us at number 5? Oh, it's SCP-2700. Our mate Nikola Tesla was for reals inventing a way to give the world free energy in the late 1800s. It seems that actually things could have been a little bit more sinister. According to the SCP Foundation website, SCP-2700 is a complex mechanical device believed to be a sophisticated directed energy weapon developed by Serbian physicist and inventor Nikola Tesla. It is possibly a particle accelerator. Now, according to Foundation lore, in Tesla's journal he says that he was approached by a man who commissioned the machine in order to, quote unquote, unlock science's final secret. Tesla claimed to have sourced material for the machine from multiverses and then created the weapon, the Teleforce. It was then brought back to our universe, and his notes read, "I took the Teleforce back here. I took the death of existence back to my universe where it belonged. I have betrayed all life forms in this cosmos. I have betrayed our entire future." The death of existence. You what, mate? Doesn't sound great. Whatever SCP-27000 is, the Foundation says that it has been auto-programmed to activate in the year 2234, which actually the Foundation are really worried about. They think it will cause a YK-class event. Coming into number 4, we have SCP-2317. The seventh bride will break the tides, the moon no more will shine. There comes a day not far away, she'll birth the death of time. This is a prophecy about SCP-2317, and it doesn't sound great, does it? Yep, the prophecy does not sound great. So SCP-231-1-7 were a group of pregnant women, although 1 to 6 are now dead. The 7 women were recovered from a cult, and it is believed that they were impregnated with the children of the Scarlet King, aka the original evil. When the Foundation attempted to capture the women, some of the SCP died, so 231, 1 and 5 died giving birth to their offspring, and it seems that many people were killed in the process. Number 3 killed herself in the facility, and 2 and 4 died as a result of a procedure conducted upon them in captivity. 6 died trying to escape. Now 7 remains contained. It seems that the women inspire sympathy from those around them, and they can manipulate people into helping them try to break out. A horrifying procedure known only as 110 Montauk is carried out once every 24 hours by criminals locked up in the Foundation. This procedure has led to very heightened levels of staff distress. Whatever the SCP is carrying in her womb, it seems like Could be a world ender. Coming into number 3, we have SCP-3003. Let's cut to the chase here. SCP-3003 is an Earth-sized planet orbiting a star 208 light years away from Earth. The planet is infected with beetles that act as parasites on humans, allowing the beetles to control the population. The planet also contains a device that, if activated, could open a portal between SCP-3003 and Earth. So should that open up, hello people controlling parasites coming at us, trying to infect us. I don't like beetles anyway. Coming into number 2, we have SCP-2317. SCP-2317 is an old 19th century wooden door originally constructed as a basement door from a Massachusetts brownstone. These days though, it serves as a door to another reality. Cool. The only thing is though, in the other reality there is a 200-kilometer tall humanoid that is known as the Planet Eater, or SCP-2317-JK, who wants to, eat the planet, destroy the world. The good news is the Planet Eater has been contained by 7 strong ancient bones, but the bad news is that 6 of them are broken, leaving just 1 between us and unleashing the beast that wants to destroy the planet by gobbling it up into his big beastly belly. Some speculate that 2317 is an incantation of the Scarlet King himself. Okay, we are here, we're at the number 1 spot. What evil is awaiting us? Coming into number 1, we have Mr. Wondertainment. What we do know is that the elusive Mr. W has created 20 SCPs, including Miss Sweetie, who was at number 10. Indeed, the man, if he is a man or even a human, created the 20 collectible little misters. I'll give you a quick run through of all of them. Mr. Chameleon. He is a sentient entity made of protons who can match its background. Mr. Headless is a headless man who can still perform tasks that usually require a head. Mr. Forgetful is a person with a peanut allergy. He's a humanoid with amnesia. Mr. Shapey is a transforming morphing creature. Mr. Soap is a humanoid that exudes a soapy liquid and can float humans in bubbles, which sounds kind of fun. Mr. Hungry is a humanoid who needs to eat 2,000 calories every 2 hours, if not he'll lose it and start consuming matter around him. Mr. Brass, I'd watch out for him. He's an automaton, a humanoid made of brass who was mistaken as a god by a cult before it ended up in containment. Then there's Mr. Hot, who has a weird ability to predict if a person has a child and also know what product that child desires the most. Really weird. Miss Sweetie, she's the only female, we talked about her, turning men into candy and then controlling them, also creepy. Mr. Life and Death is an SCP that goes through the entire cycle of life and death every 75 minutes, which sounds exhausting. Mr. Fish is a humanoid just like you and I, except he has a head of a fish, which is super creepy. Mr. Moon is a man whose face appears and disappears along with the lunar cycle. Mr. Laugh is a clown that makes you laugh so hard that you can't breathe and you die. The discontinued and mysterious Mr. Red, I don't know much about him at all to be honest. Then there's Mr. Money, who trades himself for human possessions. There's Mr. Lost, he's a free SCP who simply wanders the earth. There's Mr. Mad, who actually does seem criminally insane. Mr. Scary, who, get this, is a partially submerged steel structure with a large saltwater reservoir, who corrodes people on sight. Mr. Stripe has the baffling ability to turn people into stripes. And finally, there is Mr. Lie, but we aren't supposed to know about him. Whew. So, what on earth could someone want with compiling this collection of life-size, living, breathing odds and sods? They all have a slight underlying theme of consumerism, and also how on earth can someone create an SCP? Let me know. Mr. Tesla did it with the help of a mysterious entity. Some speculate that Dr. Wondertainment is that entity, or perhaps could be an entity from the Church of the Broken God. Others speculate that Mr. Wondertainment is the creator of all SCPs out there of all time, or maybe is an incantation of the Scarlet King, and God, I've gone cross-eyed. This is simply too much to think about.
Number 10, SCP-096 Shy Guy. This story was uploaded to YouTube about a group of friends who went up to a cabin for a weekend. You know, like a guy's weekend, just some tunes, some beers, and some supernatural creatures that'll rip your body to shreds. Not really, but that's what they got into. When the group of guys got up there, it was already the evening. The sun was going down, but they wanted to do a quick check around the area just to see what was up. They got to a cliff where they could see down to some railroad tracks. They saw a man crouched next to the tracks and it seemed like he was hurt. They called out to him, but the man wouldn't respond with words, he just kept making this gurgling sound. The crouched man started to crawl towards them, and then this 8-foot tall hairless figure, naked, long thin limbs, stepped out, grabbed the man, and pulled him into a bush. They wanted to go down and help, but they were too terrified. Number 9. SCP-902. What's in the box?
What's in the box?
SCP-902 is a lead box that seems to resemble some sort of military ammunition box. It's about the size of a person's head, it's very aged and rusted on the outside. If you open the box, there's absolutely nothing inside, but you'll hear a ticking noise. It is said that anyone who has encountered this SCP hears the ticking noise and immediately becomes obsessed with it. They believe that they have to destroy the box as soon as the ticking noise stops. However, all the people who have been overcome by this SCP stress that the box cannot be destroyed before the ticking actually stops. It's like if you come in contact with this thing, it gets in your head and it takes you over. Number 8. SCP-682. This is a reptilian creature that is very intelligent and durable. It can regenerate its body, and any type of material it consumes, whether it's organic or inorganic, will give it energy and it will become more powerful. It can change the shape of its body at will. It's extremely fast and agile, and when this SCP was captured, it killed 6 SCP officers and has been terrorizing the SCP facility ever since. It seems to have a hatred for anything living. It has attempted to escape 17 times and was successful 6 of those times. Anytime it has broken loose, it needs to be put back in a containment cell. If you try to kill the SCP, you will for sure meet your end. Number 7. SCP-055. Now there have possibly been many encounters with this SCP, but no one remembers. Any encounter with this SCP, any recording, any photograph, they're all immediately forgotten. It's unknown how the SCP was required or how the containment cell that it's kept in was made. The only way people remember 055 is by discovering the dossier with all the SCP files in it. The containment cell is easily entered and the SCP seems to be non-violent, but as soon as the person who encounters it leaves, they immediately lose all knowledge of the creature. It's even said that if you read about it, you'll become very alarmed and a few moments later, you'll completely forget it exists. Like what's happening right now. No, I'm just kidding, I remember. This could be the most dangerous SCP out there, but no one knows. No one remembers any of their encounters. 6. SCP-2521. This SCP is 2 times taller than the average person, coming in around 10 or 12 feet. It has long black tentacles that come off of its hands and has the ability to ghost through walls. I'm picturing like Swamp Thing but with Martian Manhunter's powers. It seems to be relatively non-threatening, but if people talk or write about it for an extended period of time, it has been recorded that it will appear in front of them to gather the information about itself. Basically, it knows if you're gossiping about it, and then it wants you to know that it knows. It's kind of like a warning. But from what I've read, it seems like it enjoys hearing the information about itself. Like when it appears, this SCP is like, go on girl, don't stop because I'm here. Number 5. SCP-106. This SCP is one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. It looks like a decomposing elderly man. It has mucus that covers its skin and it's corrosive and it's extremely violent. Also, anyone who comes in contact with it is attacked. It has to be kept in a lead cell. SCP-106 seems to be either dormant or in a hunting state at all times. Whenever it is in a hunting state, it will take whatever prey it has into a pocket dimension, like teleport you into a creepy meat locker. Some who are attacked by this SCP are killed, but some are kept alive and then transported into this pocket dimension. And apparently people can be sustained there for days. There's only one recorded person who came back from 106's pocket dimension, but they were completely incoherent. The transportation might have fried their mind, or maybe the storage area in the pocket dimension was too brutal to see and it melted their brain. Ugh. Number 4. SCP-087. For me, the scariest of all these things aren't the monsters or the creatures, but it's the ones that are just super freaky objects. Like SCP-087, which is just a staircase. Anyone who ventures onto this SCP has to bring a flashlight with them, because there's absolutely no lighting along the staircase, but any light too bright seems to get absorbed by the staircase. There was a team of SCP officers who once tried to venture to the bottom of 087. As they went along, they started to hear a child's crying. They came across a pale face with no pupils which was embedded in the wall. It wasn't the source of the crying, but several SCP officers started to feel this uncomfortable paranoia, and a few fainted. Some of the people who fainted were never recovered. Like, you can't even take the stairs without worrying anymore. I'm gonna see some paranormal monster just waiting to drive me insane? I'm just trying to be healthy. Give me a break. Number 3, SCP-176. This SCP is broken up into 2 different sections. The first is a large black cube with several locks on it. It's said to be 10,000 years old. Next is what's contained inside the cube. It's a young man with gray eyes, long hair, and tan skin, and demonic tattoos all over his body. The young man will stay asleep as long as the box stays closed. If it's open, he will awaken. Anyone who encounters him, he will attempt to kill. He's very strong, agile, and can feel no pain. He's basically like a reversed version of the Doom guy. You know Doom guy who's locked away in the box to kill all the demons? I bet as soon as you open this guy's box, a heavy metal track starts playing, and then everyone within a 10-mile radius is pretty much dead. Number 2, SCP-035. Now we move on to a creepy white porcelain mask. This mask will shift between 2 faces, comedy and tragedy, the 2 classic roles of theater. The mask constantly has a corrosive goo that leaks from it. Anything that comes in contact with this goo will start to decay. Now it has a small effect on glass, so it's kept in a glass case. Now if you are to come in contact with this prop, you might feel the sudden urge to wear it. Anyone who falls prey to this thing and puts the mask on will immediately start to decay and become mummified. However, they will stay animated. The mask will start controlling their body. Whoever the mask is in control of will be extremely charming and convincing. So convincing that they can trick people into killing themselves. Encountering this mask is like an episode of Goosebumps gone way too far. Number 1, SCP-700. This SCP was made by Nikola Tesla. He wanted to make an energy weapon that would shoot out lightning at something or somebody or something like that. I don't know. I think he was going for something like Thor's hammer, but instead he came up with a universe-ending machine. SCP-700 creates an energy wave that rips through time and warps it. What does that mean exactly? If the machine goes off, it would create a YK-class entropic annihilation event. Don't worry, I have no idea what that means either. I had to look it up. Basically, it would be the opposite of the Big Bang, bringing everything everywhere to a halt. We should have just stopped at sliced bread and called it a day. We don't need any more inventions. We're done.
At number 10, how do you know that you aren't an SCP? Like, seriously, think about it. You could be. Could you not very well be a clone or a clone of a clone? How would you know? Are we living in a matrix? Questions, questions, yet no answers. Would the Foundation really be chill with so many world-ending Keter-class SCPs locked up in an actually kind of breachable facility? No, they would not. So in the end, it seems they created SCP-2000, a reality reboot, an SCP with the purpose of reconstructing civilization at the event of a K-class end-of-world scenario. The year it was created is classified, but the Foundation notes suggest that actually it's been activated at least twice in history, which means that we aren't living in the original world, which, you know, is worrying. The Foundation notes from Dr. Henrietta Eisenhower read, "If we ever have to do this again, please do not set the resume date further back than 20 years before the event. Not only can we piggyback on a lot of undestroyed structures if we do, but it will make continuity a lot easier to resume." What does that mean? Tell us more. It seems that the process begins with a core number of 5 million replacement humans who are then told they're part of SCP-2000, and these core humans then work together to smooth the reconstruction over. They make other replacement humans believe that they're living in the original reality, but we're not. My point being, if the world ended, like so many SCPs in this list could bring about, you would die. Sure. But you'd be replaced in a new world until you died in that world again. Coming into number 9, we have SCP-106. Does anyone smell like, I don't know, like something rotten? It could well be SCP-106, who smells like death and decay personified. His SCP presents as an elderly humanoid in a constant state of decomposing. Gross. It literally looks like an old rotting corpse, which I really don't want to see or smell, ever. 106 lays motionless for days and can hide in walls, floors and other objects, waiting to strike. When it does strike, it goes after 10 to 25-year-olds mostly, damaging their internal organs so they can't escape. It then pulls them into a pocket dimension, which to the outside world would look like a rotting piece of wood or a mouldy wall or something. It then devours its victims as they rot. Any physical contact between the SCP and any other matter, living or mineral, result in that person or item becoming corroded and rotten. A black mucus residue is produced that seems to assist the corrosion. Because of the nature of SCP-106, it manages to frequently escape containment, breaking out of its cell by blending into the walls and rotting it until it crumbles. This SCP could and would break and crumble and mold anything it touched in the world. Ugh. I can't get on board with mold. I really can't. Coming in at number 8, we have SCP-3007. SCP-3007 is an info hazard, which means that just by knowing about it, it can destroy the world. SCP-3007 is in the Keter class, and according to the Foundation, a containment breach of it would likely result in an XK class end of the world scenario. Good, fun. Okay, but what is it? SCP-3007 can best be understood by our mortal minds as a dream. A really bad dream. In this dream, whatever happens in the subconscious world happens to you in real life. If you're hurt in the dream, you're hurt in your bed. If you die in the dream, well, you know, you're dead. The SCP is known as the Red and is said to once have destroyed an alien civilization completely, and now it wants to bleed out into our world. The only way to contain this SCP is to kill anyone that is aware of it, and most especially those who have dreamed of it, so, you know, maybe be careful when you go to sleep tonight. Sorry about it. Coming into number 7, we have SCP-990. Is he trying to help or hinder? That's the question. SCP-990 is another dreamy creature. It appears in people's subconscious as they sleep as a Cold War era male. In the drawings and artworks created at the SCP, he is wearing a hat and has a kind of red stripe of light across his eyes. What does it mean? He is classed as Keter, obviously, although the Foundation don't actually know if the SCP is bad or good. He claims to be good, but you would, wouldn't you? Dreams in which SCP-990 show up tend to end with him making a grave future prediction. He'll warn the dreamer of a disaster which then inevitably comes true in their waking life. Sounds like a good Samaritan, right? Warning, get out of here? Well, the Foundation aren't actually too sure if maybe he's the one causing the disasters. Worse yet, he has made an end-of-the-world prediction called 99007. He says that an SCP will bring about the end of everything we know, but that SCP isn't even yet known to the Foundation. When he made the warning, he claimed that the SCP is female and hasn't even been born. Remember the last part of this series? Well, some predicted it could be the child of SCP-2317. Coming into number 6, could this SCP end the world? Well, that really is the question, right? And as always, we really don't have too many answers, and I'm sorry about it. Meet SCP-3034. Now, I can't show you this SCP, but you can listen to it. Okay, so what you're hearing is a broadcast of unknown origin that has been noted 627 times since 1964. The broadcasts occur at apparently random intervals. The shortest known gap was 2 weeks, but the longest was 6 months. Now, if it's heard, Foundation members who speak Russian must respond in the same frequency with the message, "All is well." Why? Well, that's classified. What would happen if we didn't respond? Honestly, I dread to think. Could this SCP end the world? Well, probably. Coming into number 5, we have SCP-1782. Also a mystery is SCP-1782. It's a room measuring 42 by 45 square meters. It appears as an abandoned apartment complex located in Kiev in the Ukraine. The doorway to the room reads in Ukrainian 198D. Why? Well, by now I guess you should know better than to ask. The room continually changes. Sometimes it's a kitchen, sometimes it's a bedroom, sometimes it's a living room, and sometimes it's simply an empty space. Anyone who enters the room returns with a fear of holes, and nobody knows why, and I don't like tiny holes in the first place. Have I been to the room? Maybe I have. In the room, a faint sound of metal scraping on metal can be heard. On one occasion, a disembodied female voice could be heard saying, "Shakes me, makes me lighter." Curiouser and curiouser. Another time the room shifted and a man was being eaten alive by parrots without expressing any pain. What this room means and why it always changes is unknown, but the Foundation do not trust it. Neither do I. Tiny holes, once again. Ugh. Coming into number 4, we have SCP-409. SCP-409 is a large quartz crystal standing at 5 feet tall and 2 feet wide, so basically a crystal bigger than me. Big boy crystal. Shout out. The crystal is quarantined in a sealed granite container, and it must never, ever be opened. But if it was, then any single thing that comes into contact it would begin to crystallize. Oh, and if it's exposed to the air, the crystal will continue to grow and drop shards of smaller crystals that will also turn everything that touches it into, you guessed it, crystals. Unless you want your blood to crystallize, which I can imagine is a slow and painful death, I would stay away from this SCP. The only problem is you could touch one of its offspring crystals without even knowing it and meet your end anyway. At least the end of the world would be shiny, so, you know, there's a plus. Coming into number 10, we have SCP-2059, the Flesh Wall. This is basically my worst nightmare. It seems like it started its life underwater, but it can live and absorb things anywhere. The SCP is an autonomous and sentient mass of flesh, organs, and bones, but it is notably lacking in keratinous material like hair and nail. The so-called wall of flesh absorbs anything it touches, and right now it's comprised of a blue whale, a giant squid, 2 dolphins, 300 rodents, 30 living humans, 1 dead human in an advanced state of decomposition, and several household pets and livestock. Great, it's like a sick Noah's Ark. The flesh wall is contained, but if it wasn't, it would absorb everything and anything that it touched, meaning that the whole planet, animals and humans alike, could in theory become part of the sentient flesh. Coming into number 9, we have 008. SCP-008 is an extreme biological hazard that seems like it is primed and prepped to be used in biological warfare. The SCP is locked in the Foundation and is described as a complex prion. It is 100% infectious and is 100% lethal if untreated. It's transmitted through human contact and exposure to mucous membranes. It isn't airborne though. Symptoms are flu-like and involve a high fever, later followed by quick onset severe dementia. 12 hours after the dementia presents, those contaminated will fall into a coma and appear to develop gangrene. Harrowingly, patients don't die. Yet, they become twisted oozing beings with mental retardations. They'll bite and grab and claw at other humans. Eventually though, the illness will devour them and they will die. While SCP-008 is contained in the Foundation, it is believed that it could be replicated, and it is also possessed by the Russian government. The only good news is that there is a cure, SCP-500. It's a diminishing supply of red pills that seem to cure anything. But there are only 47 left, so if the whole world was infected by 008, we'd literally all be screwed anyway. Hooray! Coming into number 8, we have SCP-938. 938 is an electrical entity of Keter class. It is stored in the Foundation in a non-electrical room insulated with PVC. Now it also seems that this storage facility holding the SCP seeps a kind of blood, which doesn't sound great, does it? The SCP is predatory, and when it gets loose, it acts like an electrical storm traveling through power grids and into homes. Once a home is infected with the SCP, it will use household electrical appliances to electrocute people. Not only that, even if people think they're smart by avoiding touching electronics, simply being near the SCP has been reported to send people mad with paranoia. If this SCP got out, it could cause apocalyptic storms and infect all of our buildings and cars. And also, just out of curiosity, what is the longest that you've gone without touching anything electrical? Exactly. Yes, your phone counts. Bah! It would electrocute you. Dead. Dead! Coming into number 7, we have SCP-839, the Candy Worms. Do not eat these jelly worms. Don't do it. I don't really eat candy anyway, but like, I wouldn't if this was real. SCP-839 are flavored sugared worms that when ingested burrow into a person's body and replace one of their vital organs. For example, the blue color worm, SCP-8392, is blue raspberry flavor, not a real flavor. It burrows to replace a kidney, eventually resulting in blue urine and kidney failure. SCP-8397 is orange flavor and burrows into the liver, which then works to turn a person's blood to acid. The 4 variant is pink and replaces a living person's brain, and sadly the data has been expunged from then on. So how could this end the world? Well, it seems that the jelly worms can breed. They actually can't harm you unless you eat them, but I guess there could be a scenario in which people are force-fed sweet fruity worms and we all die of acid blood, but maybe that is a stretch. Still though, the sweets, they'll get you. Next up we have SCP-037. SCP-037 is a small-scale dwarf star found in the 1900s in Beaufort Sea near the North Pole. The star is just 5 centimeters in diameter but is extremely hot and causes a great deal of electromagnetic interference. It seems that the SCP is undergoing transformation into a red giant, which is confusing because usually the red giant stage happens before the dwarf star stage. But this is an SCP and honestly, who knows what the actual frog is happening. It seems that this SCP needs to be kept deep underground so that its blistering heat doesn't affect its surroundings. Plans are underway to get SCP-037 off our planet before it becomes a red giant and eventual stellar nova. This seems likely to, you know, melt stuff in a serious way. If we can't get her gone, well, it's been nice knowing you. Next up we have SCP-048, and I love some facts for you in a mid-list spot. There is no SCP-048. Actually, it is said that this designation is cursed. For now, the number has been retired due to a spate of unfortunate incidents with previous SCPs given this number. They've either died or been lost, and well, nobody wants an SCP to be lost and on the loose. Additionally, it seems that the Foundation employees assigned to 048 have a 50% higher death rate than those assigned to other SCPs. On one occasion, it seems that an SCP-048 was lost shortly before its caseworker had his arm suspiciously amputated. Nobody wants a cursed SCP. Absolutely nobody. Okay, so where do we go from SCP-048? The next logical place. Up next we have SCP-049, the Plague Doctor. And oh no, this guy is not good. Not good at all. SCP-049 is contained, but like, if he or it got out, it would be bad news bears. It seems that SCP-049 looks like a plague doctor, you know, the creepy medieval beak-wearing cloaked figure that come to treat people infected with plague. These days, like, plague isn't really an issue, especially not in the developed world. So, you know, not seeing many plague doctors around in my life. If you do see one, it's probably this menacing SCP. This SCP is capable of communicating, but likes to do so in medieval French or English, so good luck. 049 thinks that humans are infected with pestilence and wants to quote-unquote cure them. So how does he do it? Well, SCP-049 is capable of stopping all of your biological functions by simply touching you. Basically, he touches you and you die, which pretty much sucks. After those infected with the so-called pestilence are killed, 049 then proceeds to conduct autopsies on the victim, bringing them back to life as SCP-0492s, basically human zombies. 049 refers to these brain-dead subjects as being cured, but I don't know about that. Next up we have SCP-1012, the Secret Chord. So SCP-1012 is a secret chord consisting of 5 notes. These 5 tones are named as frequency A, B, C, D, and E. Now it is said that frequency A is slightly higher than G sharp, whereas B through D are not audible to human ranges. E is within human hearing range, but very seldom is used in the chromatic scale. It's been described as sounding like a whale song. If all 5 notes are played together in a chord, then all subatomic particles within range will disintegrate, and then everything touching them will disintegrate too, causing a chain reaction of the breaking down of everything. It has been suggested that this SCP be used to protect against extraterrestrial threats, but this has been rejected due to the potentially hazard side effects of testing. Great. The only thing we can do to protect ourselves should SCP-1012 be unleashed is wear noise cancelling headphones. Coming into number 2, we have SCP-001, the reality failure. It seems that there are a lot of SCPs labelled 001, but absolutely all of them end in catastrophe. This particular version is known as the sky or reality failure. It is characterised by a change in colour of the sky, then by a series of sub-anomalies, including a levitating spherical static. Anything that passes through this static is replaced with argon gas, making it look like it's disappeared. Faintly observable through the gas is a humanoid with long limbs with prominent facial features. Now this is referred to as SCP-0012. The Foundation notes read, in the event of SCP-001 occurring, all personnel including D-Class are to be honourably discharged and may do what they wish with their remaining time on Earth. All sapient and non-aggressive SCPs are to be released. Any further SCPs which can be decommissioned are to be. During this event, the global populace will become aware of the fate of the Earth and its inevitability. They will also experience heavily decreased levels of violence. I don't know about that. Decreased? If the world was ending, would people not go crazy, especially with all the SCPs on the loose? However though, there is a small chance that if caught quickly, the world ending could be quelled. It seems that by entertaining 0012 by reading it books can actually restore the whole thing to pre-incident point. Mind-boggling. Alright, I warned you, this is gross, I hate number 1, we have SCP-597 the Mother. Do you want to see a little picture of this one before we talk about it? This was posted on Reddit by Suckdolacus, and it shows the Mother, aka SCP-597. Now the Mother presents as a blob of booby flesh. It's a mass replete with teats. It's pretty gross. The SCP is kept locked away and staff guarding it can only do so for 5 hours until they need to be replaced with other personnel never before exposed to it. Male staff are not allowed near the Mother, but females are also likely to succumb to her thrall. All personnel must undergo mental clearance after they have been exposed to 597. It seems anyone around the SCP falls in love with it in a weirdly obsessive way. They want to suckle the TT mass, and they'll do so if they get the chance. Gross, 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 gross. Ugh, TT mass. When they have drunk milk from the Mother, they will go mad and they will not leave her side. Now those forced to leave will become insane and try and suckle anything and everything they can get their hands on, which is again gross. Some who do manage to cling on to the Mother die of suffocation, others just literally stay there forever. Blech. The SCP possesses a mental pull on all living things, drawing them in and reducing them to babies, but like perverse, infatuated, and occasionally kind of rapey babies. If this SCP got out, then we would all be drawn to it eventually, and the aim would be to drink its milk until we die, and what with a population of 7.5 billion flocking to the Mother, dying seems like a likelihood, a really, 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 really gross one.
Starting off on number 10 now, we have SCP-049. This is a humanoid creature, but that's where the similarities with humans end. To the untrained eye, 049 looks like a medieval plague doctor dressed in thick robes and a ceramic mask. These aren't just clothes though, they are actually part of its physical body. They grow out from it. Despite its creepy appearance, it's actually quite cooperative with the Foundation and can speak English or medieval French. However, even the most hospitable skips have their limits, and 049 is no different. It hates pestilence. That's all it ever seems to talk about sometimes. The definition of pestilence is still unknown to this day. 049 sometimes identifies people as having pestilence and begins to get visibly irate around them. If that person is not removed from the area, 049 will attack. It kills by one touch. One touch from 049 will kill any living thing that it wants. All biological functions just seem to shut down. 049 seems to be frustrated and remorseful after the killing, especially if it feels the pestilence has somehow survived. It will then perform a crude surgery on the corpse using strange tools from a black doctor's bag it carries with it everywhere. It will then reanimate the corpse, although it won't be the same person as before, retaining only basic motor skills. 049 can then instruct them to do its bidding, even to attack others affected with pestilence. 049 has often referred to these zombie-like servants as being cured of the pestilence. I guess we should all hope that we don't have pestilence, but until we learn what 049 actually means by that, I guess everyone is in danger of being cured. Next up at number 9 now we have SCP-096. This skip is kept in an airtight steel cube at the Foundation. I think that sets the tone quite well. Because of the high security around 096, not much is known about it other than it's very dangerous. It's said to be a humanoid creature measuring approximately 7 feet 8 inches tall. It has very little muscle mass, possibly from malnutrition. It's a horrific looking creature. Its arms are grossly out of proportion with the rest of its body. Its skin is almost translucent without a trace of body hair. That's not even the scariest part though. Get this, if a person sees the face of 096, they will be attacked and killed within 2 minutes. Always. You don't even have to see it in person. You can be looking at a picture of 096. It will still somehow know you've seen its face and it will find you and kill you. That's why they keep it in the steel cube at the Foundation. They just need to make sure there are no pictures nearby either. Next up at number 8 now, we have SCP-1471. 1471 is an app. Yeah, it's not actually a physical entity. It's a 9.8 megabyte phone app that appears in phones. Somehow it bypasses all security measures, and once it's installed by the user, it cannot be removed. No icons are shown on the phone, making the user wonder if they even installed it in the first place. 1471 will then begin to send images to the user every few hours. All of them will include the physical version of 1471, a large humanoid figure with a canine-like skull and black hair. Perhaps the creepiest thing about these images though is that 1471 will always appear in settings that the user knows from their own life. If the user does not stop using the app after seeing the images within the first 90 hours of exposure, 1471 will begin appearing in their real life, always in the corner of their eye, sometimes even trying to communicate with them. Next up at number 7 now we have SCP-173. This is perhaps one of the weirdest looking skips on this list. I think the picture speaks for itself. Its origin is unknown, and everything about it seems to be learnt from its confinement by the Foundation. Those who have dealt with 173 know a few different ways to handle it. The most important is to always keep it in direct line of sight. It cannot move if it's in a person's line of sight, which is a good thing because it's dangerous. For some unknown reason, it produces a layer of blood and feces on the floor around it. This means that its cell needs to be cleaned out twice a week. 3 personnel will enter the cell, one of them to just clean, while the other 2 are simply there to stare at 173. If one of them needs to blink, they need to inform the other one first. If both blink at the same time, 173 will attack and kill. Its choice of attack is to snap a human's neck at the base of the skull or by strangulation. I guess we should all practice not blinking then. I just blinked. Moving on to number 6 now, we have SCP-682. The entry for this skip simply starts with SCP-682 must be destroyed as soon as possible. Yeah. It's a serious one. Despite the calls for it to be destroyed as soon as possible, there is actually no known way to destroy this entity. It is beyond the powers of the Foundation. They only know how to contain it, and it takes a lot. 682 should be contained in a 5 by 5 by 5 meter chamber with 25 centimeters of reinforced acid-resistant steel plate lining all inside surfaces. The chamber should then be filled with hydrochloric acid until 682 is completely incapacitated. It's been described as a reptilian kind of creature with extremely high intelligence, able to communicate with other skips that it's been exposed to. During the limited time that it's been studied, observers think 682 has an immense hatred for all other life forms. That doesn't help the Foundation control or combat it, but knowing its primal motive is a step in the right direction. Moving on to number 5 now, we have SCP-1981. 1981 is an old Betamax tape. On the side of it is written "Ronald Reagan cut up while talking." The film on the tape appears to be a homemade recording of former US President Ronald Reagan delivering his evil empire speech to a group of evangelicals in 1983. Nothing seems out of the ordinary until about 1 minute and 10 seconds in. Then the speech begins to deviate heavily until it becomes unrecognizable as the speech everyone has on record. At 5 minutes in, wounds can be seen slowly appearing on the president's face. Despite the severity of the laceration, the president continues to give his speech until either his vocal cords are severed or the tape degrades into static around the 22-minute mark. Here's where it gets even weirder though. Rewinding 181 and watching it from the start changes the speech that Ronald Reagan is giving. The topics vary with each new speech, although they often focus on and ritual sacrifice. Sometimes a black figure with robes on appears near Reagan, often referred to as SCP-1981-1. Sometimes Reagan makes references to future events that hadn't actually happened at the time of recording, such as 9/11. For an old tape, it's caused quite the stir at the Foundation over the years, and nobody is really any closer to solving its mysteries. Moving on to number 4 now, we have SCP-106. While some of the skips we've talked about before have been scary because of their immense strength or size, 106 is just creepy. It's said to resemble an elderly human in an advanced stage of decomposition. It's basically a rotting zombie. It also likes to consume humans between the ages of about 10 to 25. Like a traditional zombie, it's not very quick or flexible and can remain motionless for days at a time. Unlike a zombie though, it uses corrosion to break down any material that stands in its way. A captured 106 must be contained in a sealed container, specifically made with lead-lined steel. The specifications for how this cell is supposed to be constructed are possibly the most technical I've seen. There are detailed instructions on materials, layers, and the space between them. There is a reason for this though. Research and observation have shown that when 106 is faced with highly complex or random structures, it can become confused and unable to exit from its containment. Moving on to number 3 now, we have SCP-2006. SCP-2006 deals in fear. That's not my description, that's how it describes itself. According to sources, 2006 has repeatedly stated its goal of causing as much fear in the world as possible. Guidelines state that if it's captured, it must be constantly monitored for changes in form. That's right, it's a little bit of a shapeshifter. Despite this, there is a general description often given. It's said to be an anomalous spherical entity, roughly 50 centimeters in diameter. However, due to its transformative abilities, it can morph into any object of any shape, mass, volume, density, and chemical structure that it desires. Due to this, there is currently no known way to damage 2006. Perhaps more worryingly, the limits to its shapeshifting powers are also not known. It could be anything, anywhere, at any given time. Like I said before, this SCP deals in fear. There's just one hitch though. It's said to be a poor judge of what actually scares humans and the emotions we feel. With the power of almost perfect shapeshifting, these small flaws may be the only chance people have in detecting this strange being. Next up at number 2 now, we have SCP-993. The last one I spoke about was a creature. This is a television program. Let me explain. SCP-993 is a children's TV show called Bobble the Clown. Sounds innocent enough, right? It's an educational cartoon with the primary plot of most episodes involving Bobble the Clown learning a new skill or activity. Okay, so far so good. The problem comes though when the program is being viewed. Anyone watching aged 10 years or older will immediately fall unconscious when the program begins and will remain that way until the end of the episode. Most of the under 10s interviewed after the event reported a stabbing headache immediately before blacking out. And finally, number 1 now, we have SCP-087. 087 is, quite simply, an unlit platform staircase. When I say unlit, I mean very unlit. This small stairwell has defied everything we know about light. Even using a 75-watt bulb, nothing can be illuminated on this stairwell more than about 1.5 levels down. The darkness just seems to swallow up excess light. It's not just the light that creeps people out here though, it's the sound. Reports and audio recordings appear to show a distressed vocalization from a young child. The voice comes from 200 meters below where 087 begins. The Foundation has sent exploration teams down there to see just how far the stairwell goes. They've descended in the pitch black darkness and the stairs just never seem to end. The teams descend both beyond the possible structure of the building and its geological surroundings. The child's voice always remains 200 meters below them too. They never get any closer. Also, on each of these expeditions, the teams were met with a strange face with no pupils, nose or mouth. It appears for a moment before disappearing back into the darkness. The Foundation knows nothing more but suspects it is not the source of the child's voice from the depths.
At number 10 we have SCP-058. Let's start off this list with one of the creepy SCPs that I have ever seen. This is a massive cow heart with legs and a bunch of tentacles flowing out of it. This thing looks like it was pulled right out of one of the Resident Evil games, and frankly one of the scariest things in Resident Evil is Nemesis, and I think this thing would rip it apart. This SCP can move extremely fast. It will use its tentacles to propel itself and fling its body all around the world. In just 2 seconds, it can go from standing still to moving at speeds of 90 kilometers an hour. Imagine this thing flying at you at high speed, zooming towards your face. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the tentacles are barbed, so this dude is even more deadly than you already thought. Now, why is it on the list of SCPs that can end existence? It is just one thing, and outside of physical damage, doesn't really have a lot of powers. Well, it's because this creature is extremely destructive. As soon as it gets on the loose, it will start to destroy everything in its path, human or otherwise. It is extremely resistant to any sort of damage that will happen to its body, and it can regenerate. When it was first discovered, it had ravaged a town and destroyed 70% of the structures there. So if this guy ever got on the loose, it wouldn't end well for anybody. It could literally just keep destroying until it killed everything on the planet. At number 9, we have SCP-2845, the deer. This is a deer with a human face, and right there, that's enough to give you the heebie-jeebies. That's something that you think you would only see in your nightmares and would stay in your brain until you went to the grave. But this SCP is extremely powerful and is of unknown origin. It definitely came from space. That much we know. This SCP was on a faulty spaceship and ended up crashing on planet Earth. Obviously, it stuck out like a sore thumb because everyone hunting was like, hey, why does that deer have human lips? But what makes this SCP so powerful is its ability to warp time and space around it to an unknown degree. Now, this could be just something that it can do on our planet, like a Superman situation. It could also be that this creature is powerful throughout dimensions. Now, the only reason I bring up the source of its power is because the SCP Foundation was able to capture it. Now, maybe they captured the deer itself, or maybe they just captured a copy of the deer that the deer created and now is still on the loose because this thing can warp reality, so who knows where it actually is. At number 8, we have SCP-1548. Imagine if an SCP was an entire sun, like the one that we have, but just even bigger. Now, imagine that it had the ability to think, and for whatever reason, it hated us. Well, that's pretty spooky, but it's a sun, it's just floating around in space, just like we are, so there's nothing that it can do about it. And that evil sun monster out in space is just gonna have to deal with its emotions. Not like the angry sun from the NES Marios. I hate that guy so much. Well, I have bad news for you guys, because this SCP is all that, plus it has the ability to move through space faster than you could possibly imagine. It's headed right for us to consume us. Now, how do we know this? Because it talks to us through radio waves. It tells us that it wants us all dead and will continue to devour all the life in the universe. What a cool guy. At number 7, we have SCP-399. There is very limited information on this SCP. It literally just showed up one day. There was a team that was ordered to work on the site facility known as Facility 118, and then out of nowhere one day there was just a new SCP in the containment cell, and everyone who worked at the facility had no memory of how it got there. The only clue was that there was the dead body of one of the scientists that worked at the facility. His body was left in the cell, and it seemed like it had been extremely tortured. Through a thorough investigation, it was discovered that SCP-399 was an interdimensional being that came into consciousness and then took this scientist into another dimension. He then tortured him continuously for an unknown period of time until the scientist was able to kill him or escape in some way and then return back to Earth. Now his dead body is kept in the containment cell, and it's unknown if this SCP is dead or is waiting for another opportunity to return and torture someone else. At number 6, we have SCP-3812. This SCP is a little hard to explain. It's not living, it's not dead, it's partly from our world, but also not at all from our world. It used to be a man named Sam Howell. Prior to his death, it seemed that there was no sort of unordinary thing happening with this man, and he had no supernatural abilities of any sort. But after he died, his spirit was seen floating out of his grave, and now his consciousness exists in both our reality and beyond it, seeing through time and space and all possible outcomes of different narratives of reality. SCP-3812 is able to change reality as it sees fit, and will often do so to try and prevent the SCP Foundation from discovering it. It can be communicated with, but will often become confused, not knowing what is real and what is not. To SCP-3812, everything might seem like a dream, with strange things constantly overlapping with each other. But the difference is, this SCP can control the dream. At number 5, we have SCP-2408, otherwise known as Yaldabaoth. This is one of the gods that birthed the dawn of time. You don't really get more badass than that. Now, it's said that this insanely powerful god created existence when he was fighting with another god. That's how you know you are serious. That's like when Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman in Africa.
Africa. Well, maybe a little bit bigger, but not too much bigger. This SCP can go through all known dimensions, and probably a bunch of dimensions we don't even know exist. If it could start time, then it could definitely end it. This is how strong this guy is. He was able to send some of his brain cells out, and they were powerful enough to almost end all life on Earth. Just his brain cells are that strong. He's currently locked away between dimensions, and hopefully we never see him again. At number 4, we have SCP-239. This SCP is known as the Child Witch. She has a power that a lot of kids would want to have. She can make anything she wishes come true. However, she is only a 6-year-old girl. That is a lot of power for a little kid. I mean, that's a lot of power for anyone, but for a 6-year-old, if that was a real life thing, we would probably all look like talking ponies and the sky would be a permanent rainbow. It's unknown how far this SCP's powers can stretch. So far, she has not found a wish she cannot make. These wishes will even affect dimensions or realities that are beyond our own. It would seem that she has the power to affect all known realities. There is also the chance that she is indestructible. She was first found in a crater in a hospital that she was born in. The hospital exploded. It's unknown the cause of the explosion, but she was the only thing left alive afterwards. Number 3 is SCP-001, the Gate Guardian. A god guarding a gate filled with other gods. This guy means business. Gods don't just hire anyone to protect them for all of time. They get the most badass, powerful thing in the universe. This SCP sits in front of a massive gate. It has 4 large wings that are flowing out of its back, and it is holding a massive sword. Everything to do with this SCP seems like it was constructed out of pure energy. Anyone who gets in with a 1-kilometer radius is either destroyed or mind controlled and told to leave. If someone attempts to attack this SCP, they are vaporized instantly, almost as if they never existed. It seemed that some people believe that when this SCP kills you, it knocks you out of all realities, killing your soul and everything else to do with you. It would seem that behind the gate that this SCP is guarding are other beings that look just like it. And number 2 is the Scarlet King. Now, I just say the Scarlet King for this one because although it is in the SCP logs, it doesn't have an SCP number, but the SCP Foundation knows that it exists. There was an occasion with SCP-710 where the SCP Foundation found a cult worshipping him and that were possibly giving him power or vice versa. This SCP is a terror to all other lower gods. It's said to be maybe the most evil thing in all of existence. It could be the devil or evil incarnate itself, possibly the source of everything evil that we have ever encountered. Well, all we have to do is ask him politely to stop, and then that would solve all our problems, right? Well, not really. All the other elder gods are terrified of this creature. It's said that this thing has caused more death than any other thing that has ever existed. He will tear down universes for just the fun of it and warp reality to his will. This dude is Thanos on steroids mixed with Superman times 1000. And for the number 1 spot, we have SCP-343. This SCP has just been straight up called God. It's an object class safe because it doesn't attack anything, it doesn't intervene with anything, it only watches. There has been some evidence that this SCP shows it interacts with SCP-239 to teach her how to use her powers because she will one day be an all-knowing god like him that will have equal or greater power. But other than that, this dude just chills out and watches everything go down. He's a very chill god. Probably has so many episodes of interdimensional Netflix to sit down and watch. I like this guy. He's very chill.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have SCP-303. This anomaly is described as a nude, sexless, emaciated humanoid figure with reddish-brown skin. Instead of normal facial features, its head is mostly a large mouth with oversized teeth. It lets out a constant wheezing noise which can even be heard from the next room. 303 can materialize and will periodically do so behind any closed door, hatch, or any sort of entryway barrier. Essentially, it works like this. You will see a door, for example, and 303 will materialize on the other side of that door. You can see its unmistakable mouth on the other side of the glass. It will sit there and watch you. If you try and open the door, you will be gripped by an intense, paralyzing fear. The fear is said to be indescribable, but some witnesses have compared it to arachnophobia, almost as if it exists on a genetic level. However, the Foundation has run tests and concluded that 303 is not doing this intentionally. It's simply a byproduct of its own biology. After some time, 303 will then dematerialize and the fear will fade with it. Next up at number 9 now, we have SCP-2935. This skip is a space-time anomaly that exists within a limestone cave beneath a cemetery in Jupiter, Indiana. The cemetery was abandoned over 100 years ago and was only rediscovered when the Foundation picked up radio signals coming from that cave. They sent a drone into the cave and to their surprise, it quickly quickly exited on the other side. What they found there was a near exact replica of modern Earth as we know it. It looked just like our world. However, all life, biological and non-biological, all machines and computers, everything sentient was gone. They decoded the signal and found that in this reality, life had vanished suddenly in the early hours of the morning, April 20th, 2016. The full message read as follows from the signal. This is an automated emergency broadcast from the SCP Foundation and your national government. One or more of our sites is experiencing a communication breakdown, likely due to a containment breach of unknown magnitude. All citizens are ordered to stay in their homes as containment teams work to secure the breach. This message will broadcast from April 20th, 2016 until, and at that point the message cuts out and then just repeats itself. It appears the Foundation has found a portal into another reality, one where some dark force extinguished all life and no government or Foundation could stop it. Now the Foundation in our reality is tasked with figuring out what exactly happened and preventing it from happening to us. Coming out number 8 now, we have SCP-1231. This is a very weird one. 1231 is an old block Amiga 1200 computer made by Commodore International. It runs by itself with no power source and displays only one screen full of thumbnails. The Foundation have dubbed this the primary screen. It cannot be shifted from this screen. In total, there are 4,352 thumbnails. They are organized into rows of 20, ascending numerically, and a scroll bar is located on the right side of the screen. Every thumbnail is a very low resolution moving picture. A few of them have even been known to make sounds despite the lack of speakers on 1231. Clicking on one of the thumbnails expands it to the size of the screen. The Foundation have studied a number of these thumbnails. They contain scenes of unknown people performing actions on a loop. Thumbnail 2, for example, features a woman scooping a powder in her left hand while holding a baby in the other. Another features a woman dislocating and then relocating a man's shoulder. Thumbnail 1170 is notable as a very creepy one. Two people are seen kneeling facing the camera, drenched in blood, crying and making non-discernible words. The Foundation thinks that 1231 is a soul trap and that the people seen in the thumbnails are, or at least were, real people. This was confirmed when the Foundation contained 1231 and stopped studying it, but the thumbnails kept increasing. At number 7 now, we have SCP-999. This anomaly appears to be a large, amorphous, gelatinous mass of translucent orange slime weighing about 120 pounds. Its consistency is said to be similar to peanut butter. The size and shape of 999 changes constantly. The Foundation describes it as playful and dog-like in nature. When approached, he will react with overwhelming elation. He will then slither over to the nearest person and hug them with a pair of pseudopods while nuzzling the person's face with a third pseudopod. All the while he will be emitting high-pitched gurgling and cooing noises. It's said that he smells different to every person. You might smell chocolate, I might smell fresh laundry, another might smell bacon, roses or even Play-Doh. Touching 999's surface causes intense and immediate euphoria. This feeling intensifies the longer the subject is exposed. This is a fitting trait to have because it's drawn to people who are unhappy or hurt in life. It's been known to cure people who have crippling depression. This has led some scientists to suggest using its slime to create powerful antidepressants. Moving on to number 6 now, we have SCP-139. Once you hear about this creepy skull, you'll never find another skull creepy again. The Foundation have determined that it is of a hominid origin. It's missing its lower jawbone and the eye sockets are very worn out. Some experts say that it's the skull of a Neanderthal, others say it's a modern human. However, everyone was confused about the ridge on top of its skull. One of the Foundation's anthropologists have said that this was used as a powerful jaw anchor to the skull. It was found by scientists in modern day Iran during the 1950s. The local people there had it suspended 50 feet off a cliff and used a pulley system to give the skull food and water. Yeah, they fed it. They referred to it as the White Div, a demon and a spawn of Ahriman, the most evil being in existence. Next, the Foundation states, the skull was then lost for many years. It surfaced next in the Yukon, 90 kilometers from the Alaskan border. The entire community of Caribou Crossing, what is today known as Car Cross, Yukon, was found brutally murdered by multiple stab wounds. The corpses were found stacked in a large pile in the center of the chapel in the town. On top of the pile of corpses was reveals the skull. Now ever since then, the skull has remained in containment at the Foundation, and still nobody knows its origins. Coming at number 5 now, we have SCP-823. This anomaly is an abandoned theme park. The site was abandoned after several violent events resulting in the death of visitors. The final day of the park was referred to as Bloody Sunday. 231 attendants were killed. A further 7 were injured or maimed. 2 individuals, one male, one female, fused together after emerging from the tunnel of Love Ride. They had both died. One person wearing a Happy Hippo mascot uniform was found dead from suffocation. Their mouth, trachea and lungs were filled with the same stuffing from the uniform. 15 people were recovered from the Thriller Chiller roller coaster, all decapitated by blunt force. Forensics showed that they were not all killed at the same time, but in groups of 2 as they went round and round in a loop. The deaths continued like this, each one as twisted as the next. The Foundation has requested for the site to be destroyed in an airstrike so as not to harm anyone else, but the request has been refused due to close proximity to civilian population. Moving on to number 4 now, we have SCP-072. This is a shadow. Instances of it were first discovered in an apartment building in Michigan. Its shadowy projection resembles a 1 meter long hand, the fingers of which taper to a sharp point. Now due to its nature, it only manifests itself at low levels of light. In some ways, 072 is like a parasite. Its host is normally a bed. It will wait in this bed until a human uses the bed and falls asleep. If they have any limbs exposed out of the covers, 072 will activate and begin to crawl upwards. It will then tap on a person's foot until they wake up. When they do, they find themselves unable to move, almost as if they have sleep paralysis. 072 will use its pointed fingers to slowly slice and cut their foot. It will slither back under the bed with each piece it's cut and then return, repeating the process to slice some more. Victims report feeling every bit of pain, although they remain unable to move or cry for help. The Foundation claims that any bed within 10 meters of the infected bed can also contain an instance of 072. That's why it's important to identify the bed and then destroy it immediately. Next up at number 3 now, we have SCP-706. 706 is a 12-year-old girl who appears normal from a distance. She has an abnormally high body temperature and her entire skin is said to be made of porcelain. Not so normal now. This layer is fragile due to how thin it is and can easily crack or break after too much movement. 706 has described this as extremely painful. However, she is able to regenerate the skin after ingesting the raw materials to make porcelain. When left alone, she will compulsively maintain her appearance, typically staring into mirrors and using makeup on herself. 706 will become very distressed if she's denied the materials or ability to inspect and improve her own appearance. Since her containment at the Foundation, she has become increasingly self-destructive and has taken to breaking off pieces of herself in order to remove so-called undesirable features. 706 is currently under suicide watch procedures at the Foundation.
Coming into number 3, we have SCP-682. SCP-682 has an omnicidal rage, making it a beastie that you don't want to mess with. It is a large reptile-like creature that literally wants to kill everything, but like, actually everything. In its reptile-y form, it gets energy from anything and everything it ingests. It will keep eating until it's stopped, and the more it eats, the more powerful it gets. The SCP is a master of escaping containment and has to be submerged in hydrochloric acid to stop it from breaking free, although it has escaped 6 times. Despite being partially corroded by acid, the SCP can regenerate, and again, it wants you to die. Coming into number 2, we have SCP-2.5.2.1. No, I haven't gone mental, I just can't say the name of it. This SCP is an info hazard and can only be described or discussed in visuals. Any attempt to write or speak about the SCP will result in it coming to get you. Which, by the looks of things, wouldn't be pretty. So as I can't really talk about it, let me show you some images from the Foundation notes. So here's a picture of the SCP, and to me, it looks like it's made up from whirls of old VHS tape. Remember those? Here's a diagram explaining in visuals how you must never write, save information, or talk about it. Ugh. If you do, Something about sticky tape hands? I don't know. What are you making from this? It seems like it can also escape confinement really easily, but showing it images seems to baffle it. I don't know if you guys are keeping up with this, but just keep looking. I'm just gonna keep showing you more images and really hope for the best, as I can't talk about it for fear of it wrapping me up in tapey hands and stealing me away. Also, there may or may not be like a little bit of a rapey theme going on here. It has a heart eye when it goes in for attack, which, I don't know, there's a lot to interpret there, and I don't like it. Get your tapey, sticky hands away from me, sir. Get out of here. Finally, coming into number 1, we have When Day Breaks. Okay, I really don't like this SCP because, ugh, gooey, sicky, gross. It makes me feel very, very vomity. So the SCP is often known as SCP-001, but as we know, there are many SCP-001s. This one seems to be an absolute world-ending nightmare. When Day Breaks refers to an SCP in which the sun gets really hot, like really hot, way hotter than it is right now, meaning that everyone on Earth begins to slowly melt until they become a fleshy goop. Now you'd think that everyone would kind of be melted and fleshy and dead, but no, 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 we stay alive. We kind of become these fleshy, goopy zombies. We're like sentient, fleshy goo, which is gross and creepy, and I need to stop thinking about it because, again, sick. But that isn't the grossest or the creepiest part. You see, it seems that the piles of sentient goo can band together to try and coax those who may be surviving by hiding in the shadows and staying out of the sun. Now they can bring them out of the sun, get them melted, and then, like, take them in as part of their ooze. I don't like it. I'm actually gonna say a hard no to being a melted flesh monster. Let's hope that day never breaks. Coming in at number 10, we have SCP-2719, an SCP I'm calling the Inside Outside. Foundation notes on SCP-2719 are sketchy and concerning. The object class is Keter, which means it's not well contained. All we get from the notes is this: SCP-2719 is a variable, abstract, metaphysical construct pointer. Concepts acted upon by SCP-2719 will either go or become inside. Further information on the SCP should not be provided to personnel who are both sapient and biological. Guilty. Then we get a list of pointers. Now these are humans who either went inside or became inside or died inside. One of the so-called subjects who went inside was the entirety of Oulu in Finland. Oulu, Finland? What's up, Finland? What's happening? Coming in at number 9, we have SCP-SCP-J, aka Scrippy. SCP-SCP-J used to be a cartoon mascot found in training videos for D-Class personnel prior to 1994. But after its retirement, it became a pest and was classified an SCP. The Foundation notes often refer to it as the Little Object class Keter. Scrippy's containment notes read: SCP-SCP-J is to be kept in a hermetically sealed containment vault at Site 58 in the hope that it might suffocate and starve to death, though the Foundation acknowledges that such a wonderful possibility actually coming to fruition is ill-becoming of anything associated with the SCP. It wants it to die, basically. The notes also detail an encounter from the year 1995 before Scrippy was contained. It seems that the cartoon was bothersome. It would ask a lot of questions, interject with riddles, and then make way for other SCPs to come in and kill. I think SCP is kind of like a way more menacing and cartoon C-3PO. Coming into number 8, we have SCP-1496, the place setting. Honestly, how strange. It seems that this SCP was obtained during a raid in an urban literary collective in Quebec, Canada. Why a raid would need to be conducted for what is described as a plate and several items of silverware, well, we just don't know. The SCP notes suggest that the SCP is locked up safely in a small item locker in the Foundation. They also read: it no longer displays any ongoing anomalous properties, although records it has affected in the past remain in their affected state. Oh my god, what happened? I feel like I need to know. I'm here like scratching my head on what these records might contain, and how did cutlery in a plate cause so much drama? Coming into number 7, we have SCP-4559, the receipt. Okay, this one is pure quirky. I'm actually very, very here for it. SCP-4559 is, and I quote, a problematic anomaly associated with the choice on whether or not a person wants a receipt or not within most grocery stores. Lol. It seems that SCP-4559 will not trigger if a customer chooses to get a receipt or is non-consensually given one, but at the same time the notes suggest that the SCP may actually be the act of decision making as to whether or not to get a receipt. I'm mind boggled. The notes suggest that this SCP is the only unpredictable and totally random phenomenon in the universe. Sure. Adding further mystery is that the Foundation notes say that all information about the SCP is to be removed from all scientific institutions. Also baffling is that the object class is Thormeal. What? Coming into number 6, we have SCP-2827, the Lobster. This is a Mexican mystery if I ever did hear one. This SCP is so mysterious that the Foundation don't even have an object class for it. The page on the Foundation website is headed with a notice from the Records of Information and Security Administration. It reads, as of 12/13/15, the database entry for SCP-2827 has been rewritten 73 times due to massive database corruption. While the possibility of tampering or sabotage has not been ruled out, it is currently believed that the information about SCP-2827 is inherently unstable and subject to unpredictable erratic changes. So, what I tell you, it may change. The most recent information suggests that the SCP is a 2-meter square plot of grass and looks like a lobster. A lot of data has been expunged or corrupted on the SCP, which seems to appear on the west coast of the United States. Notes suggest that there have been 13 casualties associated with examining SCP-2827. Coming into number 5, we have SCP-1665, the Crossword. Look, I don't know, but some people love a good crossword. Personally, I just don't have the patience for it. I'm a Slytherin, not a Ravenclaw. I like to know the facts and act accordingly immediately. But that is not possible with SCP-1665. Have a look at what we are dealing with here. It's a crossword with cryptic clues. Now 18 across is all written records will be altered so that they are in the form of a crossword blank, making storage of information on SCP-1665 difficult. Now I'm guessing the blank here is puzzle. Yay for me. Other clues are cryptic but allow you to piece together information about it, but again, honey ain't got time. If anyone has the patience to play this game, there is a link to the source in the description box. Now if you complete it, do tweet me or Instagram me with a completed picture and let me know so I can read it out for a future episode. Thank you for your hard work. Coming into number 4, we have SCP-3733, the Last Sane Man. Is this SCP sane or insane? Is it insanity itself? The Foundation notes claim that this SCP is an info hazard capable of spreading, but they don't know how. The infection caused by the SCP activates several typically inactive areas of the brain, resulting in an inability to act and reason outside of one's own experiences and personality. So what is their purpose here? It seems that when a person has been infected, they become SCP-37331. Now it's pretty hard to tell from the Foundation notes, which are an exchange between researcher Calvin and a person apparently infected with the SCP, Dr. Chapman. What's happening? Again, sketchy. The researcher has quarantined the doctor, who believes that researcher Calvin is the one infected. He claims that he is the last sane man in the world and that everyone else is quote unquote gone. Coming into number 3, we have SCP-3976, Dead Agatha Christie's. Yeah. Bizarrely enough, a lot of dead Agatha Christie's have been showing up in rural England. The real Agatha Christie, a famous mystery author who wrote Murder on the Orient Express, The Mousetrap and Poirot, has been dead since 1976. Even though she died in the 1970s, in 1926 she famously went missing for 11 days, and maybe that's important here. This SCP manifests as the dead body of Christie, appearing as if murdered, in many ways described in famous murder scenes from her book. DNA analysis have shown that the bodies are genetically identical to Agatha Christie's real cops, which is really bizarre. Coming into number 2, we have SCP-4023, Dr. Ike's Investigation. By order of the Foundation High Command, information on the SCP is classified. All we know is that Dr. Ike's is investigating the nature of this SCP, which seems to be a collection of 23 anomalous objects and entities. The number 23 seems to be important. A sketchy gathering of information seems to suggest a Lovecraftian-style entity is connecting the 23, and actually, there might even be a cult out there that worships the number and everything it stands for. What that is exactly, it's hard for me to say. If you click on any of the links provided in the Foundation notes, it will say that your access has been blocked. Coming into number 1, it is none other than SCP-001. SCP-001 is often referred to as the original evil. Is the original SCP the Scarlet King? There are actually many SCP-001s out there, all of which are pretty horrifying to learn about. We've got When Day Breaks, which is a scenario wherein the sun gets hotter and brighter and we all melt but don't die and basically turn into sentient flesh zombies. Ugh. There's also the story of the Simple Toy Maker and the Dead Man, God's Blind Spot, and more. SCP-001 is a closely guarded mystery. The Foundation notes read, in order to prevent knowledge of SCP-001 from being leaked, several /no false SCP-001 files have been created alongside the true file files. All files concerning the nature of SCP-001 include the decoy and decoys. They are protected by a memetic kill agent designed to immediately cause cardiac arrest in any non-authorized personnel attempting to access the file. Revealing the true nature of the SCP to the general public is cause for execution. So, execution. To me it sounds like the Foundation are going to be keeping this one under lock and key forever, and really, it's in our best interest to not go digging, unless we want to die.
At number 10 we have SCP-169. Alright, we're going to be kicking off this list with a massive SCP. Like, this thing could use the Empire State Building as a toothpick. It probably takes dumps the size of Kentucky. It's estimated that SCP-169 is somewhere between 2,000 and 8,000 kilometers long, and because of its massive size, it's impossible to lock this beast away in a proper containment cell. It can only be observed and studied. It is an ocean-dwelling creature using the great depths of the ocean to hide from the public. The exact description of this SCP is unknown, but it's believed that it could have the whale of a body and possibly long tentacles like a squid. The biggest threat that this SCP brings to the table is the ability to affect tides, earthquakes, and tsunamis with just the flick of its tail. If this thing trips and falls over, it could put an entire country underwater. For now, everyone is safe, but just in case SCP-169 catches a cold and decides to sneeze, you might want to start moving inland. At number 9 we have SCP-808. This is the shadow creature. This SCP is a little hard to describe because it doesn't have a body. Think of it as living darkness. This SCP can't be touched or tampered with, but it can be contained. It's very hard to do research on because the SCP can't have samples removed from its form. It will not immediately kill anyone, but being within 10 meters of this SCP will cause drowsiness. If you are in the containment area with SCP-808 for more than 30 minutes, you will pass out and immediately go into REM sleep. If you are not removed from the containment area quickly, then you will have long-term psychological damage. At number 8 we have SCP-049, the classic goth SCP. This guy looks like every goth kid's imaginary friend. The street name for this guy is the Plague Doctor, as it looks exactly like a 15th century doctor with that long bird mask and those black robes. However, unlike a regular Plague Doctor who puts on that clothing, it's thought that the robes and mask of SCP-049 are actually part of its body. This guy is not a poser goth. He has been living this lifestyle more than anyone ever has. He was literally born a goth. If you are unfortunate enough to be touched or touch SCP-049, then balloons will fall from the ceiling and you'll win the lotto jackpot 649. No, just kidding, you'll die instantly. No questions asked. Once this thing has you dead and you're on the ground, it will open up its surgical bag and start to do a series of experiments on you, just like you're a frog in 10th grade biology class. It'll take a few samples, then sew you back up, and then be on its way. Probably do a little hat tip, like, oh, something like that. At number 7 we have SCP-023. This SCP would be really cute if it wasn't an SCP. Trust me on this one. Everything I'm going to describe you about this SCP is great right up until we get to the SCP parts. So SCP-023 is a 5-foot tall, black, shaggy dog. Yeah, doesn't that sound like the best thing ever? A giant dog that you can play with, and it's massive, like he's so big and so cute. Could you imagine cuddling that thing? It would be so big and fluffy, I wouldn't need to go to therapy anymore. But now I'm going to hit you with all the downsides. All SCPs have downsides, even the fluffy ones. I mean, most of them are only downsides. This black shaggy dog has these big bright orange eyes, and if you look at this beautiful beast in the eyes, either you or family member will die in a year. But if you're really making a list of pros and cons, on one side you have death within a year from looking this thing in the eyes, or on the other side you get to pet a big fluffy dog. So you're basically breaking even, and it might not even be you that die, it might be one of your annoying cousins or something like that, because it also kills your family members, so that's fine. At number 6 we have SCP-682. This SCP is a massive lizard creature that can spit acid and consume almost anything through nostril glands. Anything it consumed can be helped to regenerate its body, which makes this SCP nearly indestructible. So far, any attempts to destroy this SCP have not been effective. This SCP can communicate extremely well due to its high IQ. And for whatever reason, this SCP has a deep dark hatred for anything that's alive. It's basically Doomsday from the Superman comics. It will kill a cute little bird just because it's there. SCP-682 has to be kept in a facility in the middle of nowhere in case it escapes. If it's able to go on a killing spree, it will start to consume all that organic matter and become more powerful than ever. At number 5, we have SCP-053. Once again, we have another cute SCP that cannot be trusted. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these SCPs is just some dude's ex-girlfriend. It's like, dude, she's so crazy, I swear. She keeps telling me that she loves me and we've only been together for like 3 years. I'm creeped out. This SCP is a little more scary than a girl just wanting to build a future with you. SCP-053 is a little girl that seems harmless. Her exact age is unknown, but she seems to be about 3 years old. Her intelligence also seems to be the same of a 3-year-old girl. SCP-053 has similar interests to a young girl. It enjoys coloring books and board games, and it's important to keep SCP-053 occupied with these games. If you are stuck in close proximity to SCP-053, you will be unharmed for the first 10 minutes. After this point, you will start to experience symptoms of psychosis and start to receive homicidal thoughts. If you attempt to harm SCP-053, you will drop dead immediately after attacking her. Any damage caused to SCP-053 will be healed from its regenerative abilities. At number 4, we have SCP-102. Now we're getting into the really weird stuff. This SCP isn't a girl or a dog or anything breathing. This SCP is a couple of townhouses. If you walk into these townhouses, you would be dead before you know it, and I bet if they were in Toronto, their property value would still be over $1 million. SCP-102 is broken down to 2 sections. SCP-102-1 is a condo that looks like a rundown building with the owner's dead body still in the rubble, unless you own a lease for the building. Then it looks like a beautiful house. If you walk in, you'll fall unconscious and become a ghost until the lease is up. I hope that part is in the contract, or at least in the fine print or something. If you enter the other building, SCP-102-2, you'll be presumed dead and go missing immediately. But still, if the rent is below $600, I think I would risk it. At number 3, we have SCP-017. The best way I can describe this SCP is a fart that can strike back. That's like when you fart in the shower and the steam intensifies it, but you can't escape or freak out because you'll slip and fall. This is like that, but you disappear entirely. Maybe to another dimension, or maybe this thing eats you. I really have no idea. SCP-017 is known as the Shadow Person. It's a shadowy figure that floats above the ground. It's about 80 centimeters tall and somewhat resembles a child. Now, this SCP doesn't really do anything as long as it's not provoked. It will just float there and linger like a dog fart, unless you cast a shadow on it. If any shadow comes in contact with this shadow figure, it will engulf whatever is casting the shadow, and it doesn't matter if this thing is a person or an inanimate object. This thing will then vaporize it just because it came in contact with that shadow, which is kind of unreasonable if you ask me. This SCP is currently being contained and is kept in a glass case in a room that is lit from both the floor and the ceiling. This way no shadows can be casted upon it. At number 2, we have SCP-122. This SCP is the biggest wolf in sheep's clothing I have ever seen. 122 is a nightlight. Yeah dude, this thing is a nightlight. I thought nightlights were meant to keep monsters away. This thing is like the Trojan horse sneaking monsters right into your room. Well, SCP-122 is a nightlight that always needs to be hooked up to a power supply. If the power supply is removed from 122, then everyone within a 500-meter radius who is sleeping will go into a coma and remain in a coma until the power is returned to the nightlight. Anyone who is in a coma caused by SCP-122 will have shadow figures come out of their bodies until the coma curse is broken. And for our number 1 spot, we have SCP-610. This SCP is one of the most dangerous ones you can come across. SCP-160 is a highly contagious disease that can spread through any organic material. If you are unfortunate enough to come in contact with this SCP, call your loved ones because you only have a few hours of life left. Upon first contact, you will have a small rash break out on your arms. It will get worse and spread to your chest until open sores appear all over your body. It will continue to consume the person until your skin is so badly damaged that you die. This process takes about 5 hours. After the disease kills you, you will then bounce back to life, a zombie with increased speed, strength, and the ability to mutate your extremities. Oh, and don't forget, a bloodlust for killing innocent people. That is a very important part. At number 10, we have SCP-1322. Could you imagine looking through a hole and seeing into another dimension that seems better than our own? That would really get me cheese. This SCP has also been known as the Glory Hole. Yes, I know this is a gross nickname, but it is for a very good reason. It is a small hole that leads to a much better destination than a traditional glory hole would. It is a 1 centimeter in diameter hole that seems to look into another world, a world that is very similar to our own but much more advanced when it comes to technology. It seems to be a world filled with humans like our own, but there is a downside though. I mean, this is the SCP Foundation we're talking about, so of course there is always a few downsides. This other world has not made advancements when it comes to medicine. The reason for this is unknown. It could be because they simply do not value health, or there could be some sort of disease that prevents them from becoming healthier. Even though there's mostly humans on the other side of this glory hole, it seems like there could also be monstrosities as well. At number 9 we have SCP-093. This SCP is a key, but to where? Well, it depends on who is holding it. It will lead you to a dimension much like our own, but possibly with much stronger religious control. Who knows? Each dimension it could lead you to is very different. The SCP looks like a red disc but has markings on it that are unknown by any human. These markings haven't been linked to any type of civilization. If you put SCP-093 down on a flat surface, it will start to move on its own and find the nearest mirror. It will then connect to this mirror, and this is how it's able to open up portals to other dimensions. If SCP-093 is being held, it will change colors depending on who is holding it. The color change will lead to different alternate dimensions. It is unknown how to control the color change of SCP-093. There are dimensions that can be connected to that have creatures in them that will harm anyone who comes in contact with them. At number 8 we have SCP-507, also known as the Smiling Man. This SCP seems to just be a normal man who likes to be called the following names: Tommy, Steve, Houdini, and Garbanok the Destroyer. It's that last one that makes me freak out a little bit, because this is not just a normal man. This SCP has the ability to teleport to an alternate dimension and then return. It seems that the SCP has some control over this, but for the most part it is random. There is an extensive catalog of information on what these alternate dimensions look like and the people that SCP-507 meets over there. This SCP has been classified as safe because it hasn't tried to harm anyone and has even asked permission to teleport to other dimensions before it has done this. One reason was to visit another SCP and then came back with a relatively boring story. But that's why I don't trust this dude. What if he brings back a massive monster? I'm not into it. No one who can teleport can be that boring. At number 7 we have SCP-1437, an endless hole that will sometimes puke up cool stuff. There have been a number of inanimate objects that have flown out of this SCP. For the most part it's nothing too interesting, like dirt and rocks, but one of the most useful things that have come through this SCP are a skyline photo of New York. This showed New York as a completely different city. This could confirm that through this SCP there is a gate to another version of our reality that could be drastically different. One of the most alarming things that has come through this SCP is a note that said, "Please send rain." This could mean that across this dimensional rift there's a version of Earth that has a massive drought and could be about to die. Well, at least we're not on that side. At number 6 we have SCP-1936. The town of Daleport, New England was just a regular place until a massive gaseous cloud covered it, and it was thought that it was housing another dimension. It was in 1997 and the SCP Foundation could not enter the town at this time because of the gaseous cloud, but X-ray radiographs have shown some strange imagery. It looks as if there was humanoid creatures that had octopus-like tentacles in place of their feet. It's unknown if these humanoid creatures passed through a dimensional rift into the town or if it was the gaseous cloud that was causing mutations in the people of Daleport. Most of the people present in the town during this time committed suicide. At number 5 we have SCP-2639. This SCP will cover a 1 kilometer area in what seems to be a cubic force field and open up a rift into another dimension. 3 humanoid creatures known as SCP-2639-A will appear. It's unknown how to communicate with these beasts, but they seem destructive in nature. They have super speed, super strength, and agility. And any sort of weapons used on SCP-2639 seem to have no effect. They can damage it, but they do not react in any sort of way that showcases a feeling of pain. If enough damage is done to one of these 3 humanoid creatures, they will dissolve and another one will appear in their place, completely regenerated with no signs of damage. They cannot leave the cubic space. It will last for approximately 1 to 2 hours and then vanish. At number 4 we have SCP-1171, a house SCP. How nice. It seems like this house may be a portal to another dimension or a form of communication to another dimension. Condensation will appear on the windows of this house at all times regardless of the external or internal temperature. Through condensation was the discovery of SCP-1171-1. This is a creature that will write on the condensation but cannot be heard, seen, or felt in any way. If you write back on the condensation, you may communicate with this beast. It goes by the name Boromont, and it has a hatred for all human life. Well, good thing he's on the other side of that dimensional portal, and hopefully he'll never come over to us. At number 3, we have SCP-XXXX. At first glance, this SCP seems just to be a normal human. He even goes by a human name, Grady Evans. But after closer inspection, this SCP seems to be a human from parallel universe and is extremely powerful. If SCP-XXXX touches you, it has the ability to take you to its dimension, and if this SCP ever feels threatened, it can disappear into a place in between dimensions for safety. When it goes into the place in between dimensions, it can use telepathy to communicate with other people from its own dimension. It's safe to say you don't want to let this SCP get close to you at any time. At number 2, we have SCP-106, the Old Man. This creature is from an unknown origins, but it's thought that it could be from a pocket dimension that it sometimes escapes to. It seems that this pocket dimension could be a parallel universe to our own, or simply a place where SCP-106 stores its food. Its food, which is almost always people. This SCP has been called the Old Man because it does look like an elderly man with some major differences. Its entire body seems to be rotting. It also produces some sort of acid-like substance out of its body that can break down solid material or flesh. If this SCP comes in contact with you, it will almost certainly attack you, usually disemboweling you before it takes you to a pocket dimension. Once you are in this other dimension, it's almost guaranteed that you will not return. At number 1, we have SCP-2682. At first glance, this SCP seems to only be a Korean strawberry that has the ability to communicate through telepathy, but after extensive conversation, it was determined that this SCP is one of the most powerful creatures across dimensions and simply became stuck. It was a philosopher from another dimension who worked with other philosophers. They studied the occult and gained the power to trap God. They then performed experiments on God and gained all of its knowledge, all the knowledge it possessed about their universe. After that, they became bored and crossed between dimensions to collect knowledge from all other dimensions. After doing this, SCP-2682 transformed and became stuck. It's unfamiliar with our dimension and the laws of reality. It does not know how to free itself and desperately would like to leave. It's unknown how to set this creature free, and if released, it's unknown what kind of effect it would have on our reality. At number 10, we have SCP-049, better known as the Plague Doctor. This guy looks like he was pulled right out of 19th century France. He's got one of those long bird masks that doctors used to wear, the ones that make them look like they are about to take out your eyeballs and use them for some sort of strange experiment. The mask it has on its face is ceramic, and the rest of its body is covered by a dark cloak. The strange thing about this SCP is that it seems like the mask and the cloak aren't clothes, but have grown out of the SCP's body and are part of its own physical body. This SCP has the ability to communicate with people at the SCP Foundation, mainly in English. The SCP seems open to talk about all topics, but will become combative if it feels that the person who it's talking to is infected with what it calls the pestilence. The description of what that actually means has never been provided to the SCP Foundation. If SCP-049 thinks that you are infected with the pestilence, it will try to kill you, and it can do that just from skin contact. How it kills you is still unknown. Once you're dead, it will start to do some sort of medieval surgery on you. There's the chance to reanimate your body into a zombie-like state. Basically, you don't want this guy to come out and meet all your friends. He's not going to be that good of a time. At number 9, we have SCP-093. It's just a little red disc. What is there to be afraid of? Even though this SCP looks just like an inanimate object, it can start moving on its own. It will start to seek out the closest mirror, and when it does, it will attach itself to said mirror, and it will open up a portal to another dimension. What dimension does this SCP open up a portal to? Well, that is currently unknown, and because this is the SCP Foundation, I can assume it's a dimension that's filled with zombies who want to eat our soul, or monsters, or whatever, some creatures that will come out and destroy the whole world. Not necessarily in that order. Thought that this SCP might open up a portal to a different dimension depending on what mirror it attaches to. Also, if someone is touching the SCP, it can change the color of the SCP altogether. There's speculation that this could also affect what dimension this SCP is able to access. There's not a known way to control the color change of the SCP, but it might be based on the mood or beliefs of the person holding it. At number 8, we have SCP-004. Now this one is just a door and a set of keys, but it can never be exposed to the public for multiple reasons. There are 13 keys that can be used to open this door, and if any of them except for 2 specific keys are used, the person who's holding the keys will be ripped into pieces and their body will be thrown through space and time. Body parts sometimes appear weeks later, not having decayed at all. One of the keys that can open the door will lead to an impossibly big room on the other side, and the other will lead to a world that is unknown but should be avoided. This unknown world should be avoided because anyone who goes in there will come back in a catatonic state and try to scratch out their own eyeballs. So whatever is on the other side of that unknown world should never be accessed and should never escape into our world. At number 7 we have SCP-963. This SCP is an amulet that has the consciousness of Dr. Jack Bright, who is a high-ranking member of the SCP Foundation, trapped inside of it. It's unknown how this came to be, but it seems to have happened when Dr. Bright was killed by SCP-0762 when it escaped from its containment cell. It seems that the SCP was attempting to activate the amulet and bind to it, but killing Dr. Bright caused him to bind to it. If someone wears the amulet, they will be taken over by Dr. Bright's consciousness. If the amulet is removed, they will return to normal. If the person wears the amulet for 30 days or more, they will become a copy of Dr. Bright that is independent from the amulet. Now, Dr. Bright wants nothing to do with the amulet and is tirelessly researching on a way to free himself from this piece of jewelry. But if this SCP fell into the wrong hands, they could use it to make copies of themselves over and over and then take over the world. At number 6 we have SCP-184. Are you looking to build a new addition to your home? Well, this SCP might be the thing you need. But I promise you, stuff will get really weird. If this SCP is left in a room, it will cause the room to expand continuously. The process starts just after 1 hour of the SCP being left in a room. At first the room will only expand, but as it's in there for longer and longer, the room will get larger and larger, and it will cause different rooms to form. Also, it will create furniture like bookcases and hallways and all sorts of different stuff like that. These replicas will be versions of things that are already in the room. The SCP doesn't follow the standard building practices that we all seem to know. It will make items out of whatever it thinks fits, like hallways made out of carpet or bookshelves made out of metal. This will continue until the SCP is removed from the room. If this SCP got into the wrong hands and was just left in a room, it could literally expand until it took over the whole world. At number 5 we have SCP-303. Some of you may know this SCP as the Doorman. It is a large human looking thing with decayed skin and a mouth that takes up almost all of its face. It has a ton of gums and big teeth. This dude looks super gross, and if the looks weren't enough, it makes this wheezing noise that is also very off-putting. Yeah, this guy sounds great. It appears behind doors, and anyone who looks at it will have an intense fear take over the body to the point where it can make it impossible for them to move. At any time this SCP has been viewed, only 10% of its body has been seen. Any attempt to see more of its body will cause it to vanish into thin air. At number 4, SCP-966. Gross humanoid creatures that hide in the dark and want to eat you. That's what all these SCPs are, really. They have sharp teeth and prey on people who aren't looking. For the most part, they aren't physically strong, but they can group up on you and take you out. They can also emit a sonic scream to incapacitate you. Oh, and if I didn't mention, these creepers cannot be seen by the naked eye. If they weren't already creepy enough, they're also invisible unless you look at them through night vision goggles. So better head to the nearest army surplus store and see if you can find some night vision goggles, because who knows, maybe you have an infestation of these things in your home and this carnivorous SCP is waiting to eat you. At number 3 we have SCP-073. This SCP has been named Cain and seems to be an enhanced human at face value who looks like a man from Middle Eastern descent, but both of his arms and his legs along with his entire spine have been removed, and in their place is some sort of metallic prosthetic. SCP-073 is hyper intelligent and has an extensive knowledge of all modern and ancient history. Cain is very helpful to all the SCP staff. He is non-violent, but the reason I put him on this list is because all vegetation that comes within a 20-meter radius of Cain dies. Also, any damage done to Cain is reflected back on the attacker and Cain remains unharmed. If this dude got loose and turned evil, he could destroy the world's food source and there would be nothing we could do to kill him. We could only contain him. At number 2 we have SCP-513. No more cowbells, just this once, the rest of the time it's good for more cowbell. This is a cowbell that you are not going to want to ring. SCP-513 is a cowbell, and if you ring it you will have a special friend come find you. That friend is some sort of ghostly monster that will start to stalk you. Doesn't that sound like fun? This thing will constantly be seen out of the corner of your eye in mirrors, but you can never look directly at it. It looks like some sort of elongated humanoid, and the stress from this thing stalking you will cause you to lose your mind. Also, it will attack you anytime you try to fall asleep, causing sleep deprivation. Basically, you could give this cowbell to an enemy and just ruin their life. And for the number 1 spot we have SCP-426. This guy is just a toaster. There's nothing to worry about. You just have to ignore it and then nothing will happen to you. Psych! you thought. This guy will lead to your death if you stay around him for too long. A horrible future for a toaster to have. So this SCP is in fact a toaster, but it is sentient. It can communicate with you, and if you spend too much time around it, you will become obsessed with this toaster SCP. So much so that you will want to be like the toaster. It will cause you to do things to be like the toaster, and because humans can't be toasters, you will eventually die. The original family who had the toaster before the SCP Foundation put it under lockdown had 3 members of the family die. One of them tried to eat a light socket and then got electrocuted to death. The other ate bread until their stomach exploded, and the other died from blood loss, but the reason has been expunged from the SCP Foundation folder.
At number 10, we have SCP-2317. Deep in the SCP Foundation is a secret that most people, even people who work there, have no idea is real. They have built a containment center around a large door that's made entirely of wood. Why is this door so important? Why should we be afraid of it? Well, if this door was open, it would unleash what is behind this door, which is a massive cosmic demon from another dimension that only has one goal. It wants to end life in the universe, and it can do that because it can just swallow planets whole in one bite. You know, 2-bite brownies were even smaller than that to this guy, our whole planet. At number 9, we have SCP-3003. Brain bugs are one of the best horror tropes. They never get old. It's like zombies with a nice hint of sci-fi. Now this SCP is just that. It's a parasite beetle that works its way into intelligent life, and then it starts to control it so it can add things to its hive mind. It has been discovered that a planet light years away from our own has been working to get closer to us. Why? Because it has been enslaved by these brain bugs and wants to come here to make us part of their undead army. There are 30 billion people on this planet, and they are all infected. However, their forced servitude to these brain bugs has made them one of the most advanced and happy civilizations we could possibly fathom. So it's a toss-up. You get world peace and advanced tech, or you get free will. You can't have them both. At number 8, we have McCain the Broken God. If you watched our last video, then you will know that we talked about the god of flesh, that is the cause of all creation in the universe. Now, what triggered that creation? It was a fight between this god and that god, according to the SCP Foundation. McCain, if I am saying that right, it sounds like I'm saying McCain, like those people who make those frozen french fries. This is very different. It has nothing to do with french fries. This McCain is the god of all technology and is worshipped by the Church of the Broken God. He has the power to create and shape tech in all forms, from the most primitive to the most advanced creation your mind couldn't even fathom. He exists beyond dimensions, and he is currently floating around through space in an unconscious state. Even the smallest molecule falling off this guy can be powerful enough to end all life on Earth. And while he is conscious, he has the ability to access all knowledge in the multiverse. Basically, this guy's a god beyond anything we could comprehend, but why isn't he number 1? How powerful do you have to be number 1 on this list? At number 7, we have the Hanged King. Remember that techno god we just talked about? Well, this guy would be above him in the hierarchy. The Hanged King is a ruler of an interdimensional space that is inhabited by a kingdom of elder gods. These things aren't the most powerful beings in the known multiverse according to the SCP Foundation, but any one of them could create or destroy a universe at will. Sometimes they do by accident. And this guy is the ruler. He is extremely powerful, and he is even able to attack and harm the Tree of Knowledge, which is the anchor of all known existence, and if that thing goes away, reality will go along with it. That doesn't sound very fun, I got to say. I would rather be than not be, there is no question. At number 6, we have SCP-001-J, the big red button. You know when you see a big red button, it says don't touch it, and then you touch it, and then something bad happens? Well, yeah, that is basically what this SCP is, but there's something else attached to it. If you touch it, then reality will melt away and there will literally be nothing left. Now, this SCP itself is not conscious, but it does seem to have the ability to attract people to it. When someone is around the button, they will have an insane urge to press the button, even if they know it will lead to the end of the world as we know it. Because this button is such a danger to us, it has been kept in an extremely secret location, 3 kilometers below sea level, and all the guards are automated robots, so they can't be tempted, and they will kill anyone who attempts to enter the containment area. The box that contains this big old button is made of pure tungsten, and then there is another layer of tungsten around that box. It's tungsten on tungsten, and then the button deep inside 3 kilometers under the ocean. There's a lot going on here, but there's no chance anyone could press it unless you can get shot a bunch of times and dive deep. You never mind, you're not going to get to it. At number 5, we have SCP-001-SDL. How will the end of the world happen? Well, this idea states that it will be caused by some sort of mutation caused by the sun. Basically, this is a horrible accident accident where the sun starts to mutate anyone it touches into goo monsters that are basically amorphous blobs that are melted flesh that combine together to become even larger blobs. They are all zombies that want to consume everything on the planet. Those who have not fallen never go out in the sun and they try to survive. This might be the worst doomsday scenario ever. And number 4, we have SCP-682. This is by far one of the most famous SCPs. It is a large reptilian creature and it is extremely intelligent. It has the ability to regenerate its body and has been known to kill anything in its path and is currently contained in the SCP Foundation, but it has escaped several times, and this has led to the deaths of thousands of SCP Foundation workers. There was one occasion where the SCP Foundation took SCP-682 to the Gate Guardian, who we covered in part 1 of this list, but he's basically a giant being of light and is able to strike anyone with his giant sword of light. Anyone who gets hit with this sword of light vanishes from existence. There's nothing left afterwards. He struck SCP-682 with this sword and he was still alive. He then spit in the Gate Guardian's face and the Gate Guardian then struck him again. After this, SCP-628 was unconscious and returned to the SCP Foundation to be put back into containment, which is where he currently stays. The scariest thing about this SCP is that the SCP Foundation asked SCP-343, who is known as God because he has created everything we know, to kill SCP-682. And he said, "He is not one of my creations, you deal with him yourself." Whoa, that is freaky. At number 3, we have SCP-3007. This SCP only exists if we know it exists, so I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm going to tell you anyways. If you become aware of SCP-3007, you will visit a world next time you fall asleep. It's a mirror world to our own and basically has all the same horror tropes of a regular horror dream world where if you die in there, you die in real life. There's a being in this world that is SCP-3007. It has the ability to shape reality and twist beings into whatever it wants to. It has done this to intelligent life for millions, possibly billions of years, taking over entire planets by infecting their minds and then have them spread the word of its existence until they're all trapped in its dimensions and it can warp them forever, torturing them endlessly. That's not cool. At number 2, we have SCP-999. Now, this SCP is a weird one because if you look up SCP-999, it just looks like a little blob with a huge smile that has been nicknamed the Tickle Monster. Why would it be on this list? Well, there's something called the Scarlet King that was on our first list, which is basically the devil of all lower dimensions and has created everything evil ever. Well, this SCP was the strongest Leviathan that the Scarlet King ever made, and it was the only one of his creations that could ever defeat him. So there's that. So this little dude is secretly insanely powerful, and who knows when he's going to freak out. At number 1, we have the Brothers Death. So what was made at the start of creation? What was the first thing that happened when life came into existence? And what was the first consciousness that was born? Well, the first thing was death. It's kind of ironic, but it does make a lot of sense. First thing that came after life would be death, so there was always balance. The Brothers Death are some of the 3 most powerful things that have ever been and ever will be, living in a realm that is above all dimensions that we could comprehend. They are beyond even the Tree of Life, which gives us the reality that we live in. There are 3 brothers. There's Small Death. He's the first one we will cover. He has the least amount of power out of the 3 brothers and the least amount of responsibility. He handles the death of life. Then there is Great Death. He handles the death of resources, planets, and anything that is consumed. I make them to sound like they're some sort of multi-dimensional mechanics or accountants or something like that, but they kind of are. They handle a lot of little things. And finally, there is Great Death. He is the most powerful and handles the death of reality. He can dismiss a universe away without effort. As we mentioned before, the Scarlet King is one of the most evil and powerful things that has ever been, and the Scarlet King is afraid of the Great Death.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have SCP-7213. This SCP is said to be a vampire, worm, human hybrid that at any moment could be in any one of its forms, which includes mixtures of the 3. In the humanoid form, this SCP appears as a male with pale skin who is stuck at the age of 24. This SCP has different colored eyes, with the left eye being bright blue with its pupil being a bright red flame, and its right eye being bright red with a bright blue flame pupil. When initially captured, it was quite a process for the authority personnel involved, as as when shot at, the bullets just bounced off of the SCP's body. SCP-7213 is not fully contained and is actually allowed to go wherever he wants as long as he's wearing his specially made coordinate transmitter cuff. You don't have to worry too much if you were to encounter this SCP unless you harm it or anyone that it cares about. In that case, you should definitely be prepared for the worst case scenario. In our number 9 spot today, we have SCP-1128. This SCP is a bit different than the other ones today, and that is because it is more of an etheric entity. This creature has the ability to manifest itself as an enormous aquatic predator, but only to those who have been given a full description of its appearance, so I'll try to refrain from doing that today. People who have been infected by the creature won't really show any symptoms or abnormal behavior, but it is possible that they might show an extreme aversion to going into the water. If an infected person enters the water and is fully submerged, no matter the depth, they will completely disappear underneath the surface of the water. Most of the time they will reappear a few moments later in a state of total panic, frantically trying to get out of the water, but other times instead of reappearing above the water, you'll instead see blood and debris cloud it, with the debris later being able to be confirmed as the vanished person. The lucky ones who have survived have explained that while they had vanished, they were transported to the vast ocean where they were actively being pursued by SCP-1128. I don't know about you guys, but I don't ever want to encounter this one. In our number 8 spot today, we have SCP-7340. This SCP is actually a group of storage drums that are said to contain USP grade isoflurane, which is said to be a general anesthetic that is commonly used in medicine. The drums themselves don't seem to contain any sort of anomalous features, and outside of surgical settings, neither does the isoflurane, but when used inside of a surgical setting, things quickly go awry. This SCP isoflurane is said to cause full body paralysis as expected, but it does not trigger unconsciousness or suppress pain. Patients remain conscious and aware for the duration of their surgery, but are unable to move or otherwise communicate. That's definitely an absolute nightmare, and one scenario that so many people fear. There is one positive catch about this SCP, however, and that is that it increases the success rate of experimental or high-risk surgeries by 85%. That is exactly why this SCP is sometimes allowed to be used, but it is of course only in very specific and controlled circumstances. In our number 7 spot today, we have SCP-7243. This SCP is quite different than expected because this is actually one that appears as a paintbrush with the bristles coated in what appears to be a redacted branded superglue. The research into this glue shows that when used to bind two items together, it isn't just gluing them together, it's connecting them at an atomic level. Of course, this prompted more research and testing began on what happens when certain materials become connected to others. While most results weren't necessarily positive ones, some results were severely worse than others. The worst of them all was when flesh was tested against flesh. When this happens, a new creature was created dubbed SCP-7243-3, which was just a mess of flesh, broken bones, blood, and a mixture of organs. This anomaly began trying to escape containment, so they began trying to terminate it, but this proved to be harder than expected and resulted in a significant loss of life. Since then, testing SCP-7243 with subjects made of flesh has been strictly forbidden. In the wrong hands, this SCP could prove to be an absolute nightmare. In our number 6 spot today, we have SCP-835. This creature is a large mass of coral-like polyps, with each individual polyp being larger than any known coral species. Some have been measured to have grown over a meter in diameter. SCP-835 has a central mass that is roughly shaped like an oval with a polyp at each end. While this creature is unable to move around the deep sea, they appear to anchor themselves down with their large tentacles that come off of the polyps. The tentacles not only anchor the creature, but they also help in the feeding process, and they are coated with a sticky adhesive substance. This creature has an extremely hard outer shell, which means that diamond drills have been needed in order to help collect even the smallest samples of the specimens. This creature has the ability to secrete a pretty toxic batch of chemicals, parasites, and bacteria, so the idea of completely cracking one open is not something that is currently an option out of fear. SCP-835 also has the ability to grow at an incredibly fast rate, but it can also slow its own growth, sometimes even halting it for 24 hours. In our number 5 spot today, we have SCP-7038. SCP-2398. This SCP is a humanoid sort of creature, but no one is exactly sure what this creature is made up of. They resemble a human female, but they have crazy crimson hair that's 3 meters long. They also have horns on their head, kind of like an ibex, and they also have these crazy amber colored eyes with no pupils and the tongue of a serpent. They have multiple rows of teeth that honestly resemble that of a shark, and they even have a tail that is 5 meters in length, and at the end is a spike like a needle. This SCP has the intelligence of a human and can speak multiple languages, but despite this intelligence, this SCP has quite fragmented memories of the outside world. This SCP is kept quite secure with reinforced and bulletproof glass enclosing it, as well as being outfitted with a fast release trapdoor, and the SCP has to be suspended in the air at all times. In our number 4 spot today we have SCP-3000. The area where SCP-3000 currently resides is in a region in the Bay of Bengal that is around 300 kilometers in diameter. Because of this creature, any kind of deep sea diving by civilians is strictly prohibited, because if any contact is made, the humans will need to be immediately contained, quarantined, and processed for an indefinite amount of time. So what is SCP-3000? Well, it is a massive aquatic serpentine creature that resembles the giant moray eel, and because of this resemblance, it makes it hard for the average person to tell the difference. This one is a mostly sedentary creature, which may be due to its incredibly large size. While its exact measurements are unknown, it is believed to measure somewhere around 600 to 900 kilometers in length. This creature is carnivorous, and although it stays in one spot most of the time, that doesn't mean it doesn't have the ability to quickly snap up its prey. It is said that any direct observation or even any individuals within a certain distance of this SCP will experience inexplicable head pain, paranoia, fear, panic, and memory loss. All that being said, I think it's probably just best to stay as far away as possible. In our number 3 spot today we have SCP-169. SCP-169 is a bit of an enigma because it is said that it cannot and will never be contained. There is no structure on Earth large or strong enough to hold SCP-169, and while the exact location of it is currently unknown, satellite images suggest that it is located in the southern Atlantic Ocean. SCP-169 is said to be a marine arthropod of massive size, often referred to as a leviathan. At first it was presumed that the tales were just myths, but during investigation of supposed paranormal activity, its existence became feared. The creature is estimated to have a body length of somewhere from 2,000 to 8,000 kilometers, and it is thought to have existed since the pre-Cambrian era. As far as we know, this single specimen is the only of its kind, and next to nothing is known about its lifestyle. The creature moves quite slowly at a pace of less than 1 kilometer per week, but it is currently believed that it is just adrift. In the area that is believed to be the current location of the creature, there has been regular seismic tremors detected, and that is thought to be indicative of SCP-169's breathing. These tremors cause minor shifts in the island's terrain, so it is believed that the creature is currently dormant. In our number 2 spot today we have SCP-6348. This SCP is less of a creature and more of an atmospheric phenomenon that is seen over an island in its winter months. It appears like a dense fog, and when it does appear, it covers much of the island and the nearby sea. When exposed to this SCP, terrible things happen to humans. They undergo rapid petrification, which begins in the outer limbs and slowly moves towards the center of the body. It is thankfully a painless process, but terrifying nonetheless. It only takes about 80 minutes for the petrification to fully set in, and because of this, the SCP is a severe risk to all humans. In our number 1 spot today we have SCP-4751. This SCP is a female humanoid entity that has the ability to shapeshift and manifest itself with the appearance of someone that you would trust and feel safe with. The ultimate manipulation ability. This SCP has been documented as looking like people's friends, parents, colleagues, partners, celebrities, or even non-existent people. This SCP is one that actually isn't contained because its existence is said to be benefiting the world. The SCP will appear to certain people and will remove them from dangerous situations. They will perform first aid, sometimes they will provide emotional comfort or some basic needs, and this is all usually done in the desperate time period right before that person might meet an untimely fate. While the SCP is one that people desperately want to research, right now it is believed that the benefit of letting it run free outweighs the benefit of studying it.
Coming in at number 10, we have SCP-5516. Let's kick off this list with one that seems very ordinary at first. I mean, you wouldn't even be able to tell that this thing was an SCP unless you took a long, hard look at it. SCP-5516 is a grouping of lobsters. The number of that grouping is exactly 101. Now, what makes this SCP different from ordinary lobsters is that these 101 lobsters seem to act as a cohesive unit. It's almost like they all have the same programming, or that they're all part of the same hive mind. They do a great job at working together and are so much more intelligent than regular lobsters. It would seem that they have the ability to solve puzzles, and they can even do complex things that no lobster should be able to do. And something very strange about this grouping of crustaceans is that they have the ability to replicate. If one of them is destroyed or eaten or even killed in any way, the hive will create another one out of thin air or water, or whatever state they wish to use. This means the number can never drop down, and they do like to stay together. If you separate the hive, they will become stressed. Coming in at number 9, we have SCP-314J. Confidence is a very important thing, and it's something that many of us struggle with. If you are one of those people, you will want to stay far away from this SCP. This SCP is a book that has a very rude title. At the top of this book, it reads the numerical proof that you suck. But something that's very strange about this book is that once it opens up, there will be nothing inside the book. So why does this book have such an insulting title? Well, as you stare at the blank pages, you will see it start to fill in with math, and every calculation on the page will give you a breakdown as to why you suck on a mathematical level. That seems very rude and unnecessary, but most SCPs don't care about your feelings, so why should this one? One positive thing about this book is the dumber you are, the harder it would be for this book to insult you. Like, I suck at math, so I think this thing could bring up a bunch of numbers and I would have no idea what's going on and I would take no offense. Coming in at number 8, we have SCP-5165. Some of the most powerful printer paper that you will ever encounter in your life. This printer paper comes from a paper mill in Romania. Right off the bat, this doesn't sound terribly exciting. Well, if you use this paper to create something, say a dog out of origami, then that piece of paper will actually get turned into a dog. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So you could really turn this paper into whatever you want, which makes it very dangerous. You would have to get really good at origami first, but you could make a whole army out of little origami samurai and then have them turn into real soldiers, and then they would go out and storm whatever building you needed. But in the breakdown of this SCP, it doesn't say whether or not these things will actually listen to you. So you could make an elephant, but then it might just run rogue and smash through some buildings. So you might have to both be an origami specialist and a wild animal tamer. Coming in at number 7, we have SCP-826. Have you ever wanted to create your own world? To take a story that you love and make it into a real universe? Well, I do have an SCP for you. Why do I sound like a used car salesman? Well, if you have a book that you love, all you have to do is put it between this SCP, which is 2 bookends. Once the book is placed, it will start to create a reality in some sort of pocket dimension that is the whole book, and you can run around in there as you please. Do you like Harry Potter? We'll throw one of the less traumatizing issues in this book and sit in the Wizarding World background and watch as Harry tries to save the world, or do the opposite and stop Harry from being the hero and side with Voldemort. I don't care what you do. Coming in at number 6, we have SCP-5175. This SCP works hand in hand with someone known as Damien, and the two of them are a pretty badass duo. Let's start with the breakdown of Damien. This was just some dude who actually wanted to be a great warrior, but I don't know if you have been walking around the world in this day and age, but there aren't a ton of warriors walking around, or even the chance for large-scale combat, at least not in Canada. The biggest conflict you're gonna get into in Canada is probably with a goose. Well, Damien pushed his urges to be a heroic legend down into his soul, and would instead spend hours watching anime with intense fight scenes. That's one way to live out your dreams. Well, one day Damien got the call. He was walking past SCP-5175 and their spirits connected. See, SCP-5175 is actually a knife that has the soul of a samurai that's been trapped inside it. A witch cursed the samurai to forever live in the knife. His name is Kuritanka Hanzo, and his soul will forever be trapped in the knife until he claims 1,000 souls. Now, neither Damon nor Hanzo are evil, so how are they going to get these souls? Well, by taking out evil monsters. See, the knife that Damien wields will take the soul of the person it kills and trap them in a shadow realm, so unkillable monsters can swiftly be dispensed with the use of this supernatural weapon. Coming in at number 5, we have SCP-343. This is the SCP that will make the perfect Halo game. Just kidding, that's 343 Studios, and I hope that it is the perfect Halo game, but if it's not, don't come for me. SCP-343 may be the most powerful SCP. I guess the best way to describe this SCP is that it's pretty much God. It's an all-powerful being that can really do anything. It's thought that this SCP has created everything, and it's watching all of us live our lives for reasons that we could never comprehend. I mean, if this SCP is real, it is an all-powerful being that created everything. It can make an entire universe in the blink of an eye. So is this SCP real? I don't know, dude. I don't have those kind of answers. Are you kidding me? I barely know what to eat for dinner most of the time, and I end up ordering something off of Uber Eats that I could have made myself for a fifth of the price. Coming in at number 4, we have SCP-610. Alright everyone, put on your mask because this SCP is an infectious disease. I think something like this will freak everyone out at a time like this. So this SCP will start as a little itch. It's unknown if this SCP can be contracted through just skin contact or if you can get it through air contamination, but I wouldn't take the risk either way. At first, this SCP will seem like nothing, maybe a little eczema flare-up. It will start with just a little bit of itching on the chest, and then it will spread to your arms and face. But at first, it will just be an itch. But by this time, you should start to worry. Hours in, you'll be in intense pain, and you'll have scarring all over your body and blisters everywhere. 5 hours in, you are done for, and this thing will have fully misshapen your body, and you will have new limbs growing out of places where they shouldn't be. Yeah, if you haven't thought about going to the doctor at this point, then you might want to consider it because things are going to start to get out of hand when you turn into a horrible monster and then start spreading the disease to other people in the final stage of this SCP. It was discovered in Russia, and since then it has been contained by the SCP Foundation. Coming in at number 3, we have SCP-3352. Not every SCP has to be evil or even intelligent. Some of them just have to be a thing that exists and no one can explain how it was able to do something so incredible. This SCP is just a support beam. It was located under a petroleum refinery in Pennsylvania. Honestly, if nothing ever went wrong in this facility, then we wouldn't even know that this SCP existed. But one day, the petroleum refinery went up in flames. People tried to put the fire out before it reached some of the dangerous chemicals that were being housed in this facility, but there was no such luck. A stash of liquid propane caught fire and then mixed with some of the chemicals used to refine the petroleum, and it made a substance so hot that it liquefied the concrete in the building, and there was literally a boiling soup of chemicals below the facility that was burning at 2,000 degrees Celsius. Every last support beam under the building was incinerated from the intense heat except for one beam that never deteriorated and still stands there to this day. Coming in at number 2, we have SCP-225. Two massive spheres that are supposed to be somewhere on planet Earth. It could be that the SCP Foundation has already found them, or that some country is keeping them secret. Now, both of these spheres can't be moved by any force known to man. Both of them seem to be indestructible. What makes these SCPs so dangerous is that if for whatever reason they were to collide, they would create a shockwave that could wipe out a whole country. Because neither of them would take any damage, all of that energy would be pushed outwards. Now, why do these two massive orbs exist? Well, that still hasn't been answered. Some people think that they could be separate universes that could be encased in something that we don't understand. This could present a new threat in itself because these SCPs could collide and then could potentially unlock each other, and those universes could try to take over the space that our universe exists in, and the three universes would be existing in the same place and could wipe out one another. other. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have SCP-5092, an extinction level event that is directly attached to the president itching his nose. That seems like a pretty big deal to attach to something so trivial as the president scratching his nose, but I don't make the rules, I just tell you guys what's going on in the SCP universe. So the way that this works is apparently the president of the United States gets an itch on his nose at the same time every night. This itch will always come at exactly 7:53 p.m. and it's not because there's a little invisible dude tickling his nose, it's because the universe will send the feeling of an itchy nose to the president. So it's a genuine itchy nose feeling. Now, as long as the leader of the free world reaches in and scratches his nose, then everything will keep flowing as it should. But something that he doesn't know is that when the feeling of the itchy nose materializes on his face, it also materializes an asteroid in outer space. This thing will start blasting towards Earth, and if it makes contact, it will destroy the planet and kill every last living thing. But as soon as the president scratches his nose, it disappears. So just know that any day could be our last, and it's attached to an itchy nose.
Starting off this countdown, we have SCP-1959. SCP-1959 has yet to be contained by the Foundation. It is identified as a white spacesuit similar to the Soviets' SK-1. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is a random spacesuit floating in space so scary? Well, the suit is indestructible, and the helmet's visor is damaged and misted over so we can't see what on Earth is in the spacesuit. Not only that, but it emits a lot of gamma radiation. SCP-1959 is said to continuously orbit around the Earth at a fairly consistent speed. It has been observed to change between low to high Earth orbit. Also, if it encounters any space objects as it's orbiting, well, it just rams right through them. Now, this SCP is capable of moving independently, but most of the time it remains motionless, just drifting through space. Another scary fact is the Foundation once observed SCP-1959 trying to break its own visor during a period where it seemed distressed. So, who is this creature and what does it want? I wish I had the answer to that question. In our 9th spot, we have SCP-2362. SCP-2362 can be best described as an object about 900 kilometers in length that is bell-shaped with 13 trailing appendages, making it look somewhat like a jellyfish. It was discovered in 1983 by Foundation researchers. It has been observed to emit a blue light, which is visible from Earth by a high-powered telescope. SCP-2362 has the ability to propel itself by expanding and contracting its appendages. As of now, we really don't know what to expect from SCP-2362. It's best that we just continue to keep its existence a secret from the public. Moving on to number 8, we have SCP-007. SCP-007 is sadly not 007, so it's not James Bond. SCP-007 is a really weird mass of microplanets that is located in a humanoid's body. The humanoid is an unnamed 25-year-old Caucasian man, and he basically has a whole version of Earth just chilling in his abdomen. Although the man is missing his abdomen, he's not suffering. Instead of normal flesh on his abs, he's got a sphere composed of soil and water. This sphere has its own weather patterns and gravitational pull. He's also got microscopic organisms living in it. When he was asked about the thing growing in his stomach, he said, and I quote, "I just woke up one day and there it was. I don't have any idea how it got there." Weird. Currently, he's confined to a 10 by 10 meter living area that he cannot leave. In our 7th spot, we have SCP-1694. SCP-1694 is a bunch of remains from an extraterrestrial nanotechnological device that was deployed on the surface of Venus. We don't know by who, when, or why. But what we do know is that the entity is 2 millimeters in length, can self-replicate, repair itself, and quickly extract resources. It's said that SCP-1694 is extremely aggressive towards all organic matter, whether it be living or dead. So we need to stay away. If it encounters any organic matter, then it will shred the object quickly, and then reassemble it to create a mass with more sophisticated organs and durable appendages. It can even take dead tissue or matter and then reconstruct that. Coming in at number 6, we have SCP-4524. SCP-4524 is an astronomical body about the same size as our moon, except it's made completely out of human cells.
As a result, it's thought that this SCP was once a humanoid creature, but over the years, it adapted to this weird, massive space body. When SCP-4524 was first discovered, the Foundation planned to send humans on a mission to explore it, but it was deemed too dangerous, so they sent a rover instead. And the rover came back with some very interesting findings after collecting a variety of samples. For example, the soil was made up of dead skin cells. The exterior building material was muscle tissue and bone marrow, and the liquid in the river was a mixture of bodily fluids like urine and sweat. Now the Foundation is just working on keeping its existence a secret. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with SCP-5060. SCP-5060 is a terrestrial exoplanet with an unusually high number of satellites. It's currently impossible to contain. As of January 2020, it is said that it has 1,260 satellites. Every 15 to 26 years, SCP-5060 launches a new satellite, so it's believed that there is some kind of extraterrestrial civilization there. SCP-5060 is said to be roughly 0.95 times the radius and 0.9 times the mass of Earth. Its atmosphere is very dense, consisting of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, argon, and sulfur dioxide. As a result, the planet's surface cannot be viewed by visible light from space. The Foundation has attempted multiple times to land probes on the planet, but upon entry they always lose communication. On top of that, SCP-5060 does not like probes. As a result, it usually causes it to become aggressive and fire attacks, especially when the probes try to recover material from it. No probes have ever managed to escape or survive the attacks. Coming in at number 4, we have SCP-5845. SCP-5845 is a region on Mercury located from Mercury's magnetosheath to its crust, to its mantle, and then the outer core. In order to enter this area, you need a head-on trajectory towards the surface at a very high speed. However, once inside, you'll experience auditory hallucinations. Some have heard roosters crowing or cawing or whatever noise they make, or rams bleating. These will only increase as you approach SCP-5845's sphere. At this time, containment of SCP-5845 is not necessary, as it takes quite a bit to actually access this SCP. Moving on at number 3, we have SCP-3485. SCP-3485 is located 17 light years away from Earth and has been described as looking like a large lobster. Emphasis on the large part. So in comparison, the sun's diameter is about 1.39 million kilometers. This creature is larger than the sun. From head to tail, it measures at 1.56 million kilometers. SCP-3485 was first discovered by an amateur astronomer back in 1999, but when he tried to publish his findings, a lot of people made fun of him. Like, hello, who's gonna believe a ginormous lobster? But then in 2001, the SCP Foundation discovered SCP-3485 for themselves. SCP-3485 is said to be abnormally resistant to damage. In addition, it can withstand radiation when coming in contact with small stars. In fact, it feeds on star material. Now my question is, will it taste good with butter? Coming in at number 2, we have SCP-3493. SCP-3493 is a bunch of growing, extremely massive black holes located across multiple different universes. There's one located in each universe. Apparently, if anyone looks at any of these black holes, then they will experience a form of severe dementia. They will lose the ability to process any kind of information, meaning they can't create or retain memories or perform simple tasks or functions. SCP-3493 also has the ability to hide any information on itself. So in order to learn more about it, you have to travel to another universe and they will be able to interpret the data for you. And in our number 1 spot, we have SCP-2399. SCP-2399 was discovered back in 1963 and is described as a massive mechanical structure located in Jupiter's lower atmosphere. To us, it looks like a large red vortex, which is why it's sometimes called the Great Red Spot. Now, some say that this continent-sized structure is an alien spaceship that was sent to destroy Earth but accidentally crashed on Jupiter. Now, it it is slowly repairing itself. It does so by releasing small repair drones. Some of the drones stay to protect itself, while others go off looking for its missing parts. But despite its damage, it seems to have a limitless power supply, electromagnetic shielding, and matter-disrupting weaponry. It's currently repaired 59% of itself. We should be worried when it's 100% repaired.
Moving on to number 2 now, we have 093. 093 is a test of sorts, a very creepy one at that. It's primarily a red disc carved from a stone said to resemble cinnabar. There are known circular engravings and unknown symbols covering it. Researchers first noticed that 093 changes colour slightly depending on who is holding it. The most current theory is that it does so based on the regrets of the person holding it. 093 can only be contained by mirrors. If it's placed on a mirror, it will remain there as if it's magnetized to it. If it's removed from a mirror and not held by a person, it will seek out the nearest mirror-like surface. It will start to roll in a large circle, building up great speed until it makes contact with a mirror, punching a hole in anything that stands in its way, including living things. Now, despite the force with which it hits its new mirror, neither the mirror or 093 appear to be damaged. But here is the twist. During a test at the Foundation, one researcher tripped while holding 093 and passed straight through the mirror. Now the Foundation is conducting experiments to determine the safest way to harness this power, to use 093 to explore the mirror world. The experiments are very cautious at the moment though, as the Foundation tries to ascertain whether its changing colour can drastically affect the results. And finally, number 1 now, we have SCP-122. This is a children's nightlight in the design of a shooting star. It affects people's sleep in a very disturbing way. Whenever it's without power and within 500 meters of a sleeping human, it moves them into a comatose state. They will remain like this until 122 is resupplied with power. Now, while in this state, humanoid figures made up of an unknown black mass will appear from any shadows around the person. The figures will spread out and try to affect any other people in the area who are asleep. If they find people who aren't asleep, they will resort to using pills, blankets, and lullabies to try and get them into that state. When 122 is in a powered state, it will affect their sleep patterns differently. People will display signs of insomnia and complain of unusual dreams. I found the most disturbing part of the report on 122 was that it has shown signs of sentience since the Foundation obtained it. It has succeeded in breaching containment 11 times. On one such occasion, the report said that security footage of several maintenance personnel tampering with SCP-122's chamber lock were discovered. When questioned, the subjects claimed that they had done so under duress, saying that a canary was not allowing them to sleep until they released SCP-122. It seems that this anomaly is not afraid to use its powers of manipulation to bend humans to its will.
Coming in at number 10, we have SCP-038. Let's start off this list with something crazy. This is a new SCP for me, and it has been nicknamed the cloning tree. Anything you throw at this tree will get cloned. If you want 2 dogs, throw one of your poochies at this thing. You want more beer? Throw some beer on this bad boy. I wonder if liquids would work. Like, could you pour water onto this tree and have it clone water, and then you could have more clean water for all the people in the world? That would be amazing. Well, here's the thing. There are rumors that there are more resources in Antarctica than any other place in the world. So what if they got this tree up there and that thing is just hiding up there, juicing out a bunch of stuff that they will use as resources later to dish out to the whole planet? Or the Illuminati is using this to make their grand army to take over the world. Coming in at number 9, we have SCP-811. What's going on down under the sea? Do we really know? It seems like every year there's some new strange creature that's been found underwater, and we have no idea how many of them there actually are, or if they will try to come to the surface and destroy our whole planet. They could start polluting the air the way we've been polluting the water, but we are already doing that, so we might not even notice. But the mysteries underwater can make this SCP real, because this SCP is basically a mermaid that is chilling down underwater with some green scales. With all the crazy stuff going on in the world, I would not be surprised to find out that mermaids are real. I mean, the CIA just announced that UFOs are real, so that could mean that aliens are real, and that is just the info that they have gave us. There could be aliens already on the planet that are hanging out with mermaids and all of watching The Office as much as humans. That would be hilarious. Coming in number 8, we have SCP-457. This SCP is insane. If it was left to its own devices, it would cover the world in fire, and we would all be cooked to death and slowly die. That doesn't sound like the way I want to die. I was hoping I could go out in an ice cream eating accident while swimming around in millions of dollars. But this SCP starts out as a little flame, and then it consumes things, and it will get bigger and bigger until it's about the size of a person, and then it will split into two and continue to spread. Which makes me think, how are stars created? They're massive balls of fire. Maybe there's a bunch of SCPs floating around in space, and they keep consuming things until they grow to a massive size. Maybe the sun will consume Mercury one day and then split into two, and it'll get so hot we'll all be burned to death before I can have my billion-dollar ice cream accident. Maybe I'm just stretching a little bit for this one. Coming in at number 7, we have SCP-1. If you type SCP-1 into the SCP Foundation, you will get a list of a bunch of different SCPs. No one really knows what SCP-1 is, and everyone has a different opinion as to what SCP-1 is. So it could be anything, dude. Is your cup acting weird? It could be SCP-1. Did you get a bad haircut? That could be SCP-1. Did you have a weird dream where you got casted in a movie with Jennifer Aniston and the two of you became friends? That literally could be SCP-1 just chilling in your brain doing some weird stuff. Because this SCP has so many variables, it might be walking around the world right now. Basically, you should always be looking over your shoulder because this SCP could be real, and the Illuminati is always watching. Coming in at number 6, we have SCP-2059. I mean, we already talked about things at the bottom of the ocean. This could easily be down there, sucking up a bunch of life, absorbing things into its massive body. If you don't know about this SCP, it's a massive blob of organic material. If you touch it, it will absorb you into it and you will become one with the blob. You'll be dead, but it'll use your body to become larger. I wouldn't be surprised if something like this was at the bottom of the ocean. Coming in at number 5, we have SCP-106, one of the most famous SCPs. It's terrifying on every level. This thing is terrifying to look at. It's an old man whose body is decaying. It's super strong. It eats people. It will disembowel you, and it can teleport. Also, it has a pocket dimension that it takes stuff to, like people that it keeps for food. So this thing could be chilling in its pocket dimension right now, and we wouldn't even know. Well, that's terrifying to think about. Coming in at number 4, we have SCP-001J. This one is one of the most stressful SCPs I have ever read about. Just thinking about it makes my anxiety soar through the roof. SCP-001J is just a button. That's it. What's the big deal? Well, if you press this button, it will bring the end of the world. It will actually cause the world to collapse onto itself. It's speculated that pressing the button will restart the universe or end existence. That doesn't really sound very fun. On top of all of this, for some reason when people are around the button, they have the urge to press the button. I don't know how strong the urge is, but it's strong enough that this thing is locked away at the bottom of the ocean with robotic guards all around it that will kill anything organic that gets too close. Well, that's what the SCP Foundation says. What if this button is just any button? It just hasn't been pressed yet. It could be out in the world, and it's only a matter of time before someone presses it and we all die. Coming in at number 3 is SCP-2598. This SCP will forever go down in my books as one of the greatest of all time. I mean, it's cool when an SCP can take over the world, or is some force that will kill you at any moment, or has the ability to reshape reality, but it's even better when an SCP is just a dumb little bug. This SCP is a moth, and it has a little hat on, and it communicates in Morse code, and the whole time it talks to you is just trying to change the conversation back to the fact that it wants to sell you this little hat that it wears. Now, here's the thing. This could totally be real because how many of you out there speak Morse code? Not many of you. So a moth could be trying to talk to you in Morse code and you wouldn't even know. On top of that, you probably just think it's a gross bug and you wouldn't even give it the opportunity to finish its sentence. Yeah, dude, this thing could be out there. Coming in at number 2, we have SCP-5106. This is an SCP that I recently put on my list of newest SCPs. I love this SCP so much because it's hilarious. I also think it fits perfectly on this list because, well, just hear me out. So if you didn't watch the video about the newest SCPs, this SCP is a goose that can talk. It has full comprehension of the English language and it can have deep, rich conversations with people. On top of this, this goose has the ability to control other animals. Now, we don't know if the goose can control other animals or if it can just talk to them and they understand what it says and then they listen to him, or if it has some sort of influence over the animals. Now, the reason that the SCP is on this list is because geese can sometimes be too smart for their own good. They are crafty little And it would seem that they can coordinate other geese to poop on your car. How many times do you come out and find bird turds all over your vehicle? And coming in the #1 spot, we have SCP-027. This is one of the most disgusting SCPs I have ever heard about, and it could literally be any dead body that has ever existed. The vermin god starts off as a virus. People think it could be something mystical, people really aren't sure. It will infect a person and they will have the worst possible thing imaginable happen to them. Their body will be infested with rats that will slowly make a home inside them and kill them from the inside out. By the time this person dies, generations of rats will have made a home inside their body. And I thought getting a tapeworm would have been bad. Well, after you die, the rats will continue to use your body as a nice 2-bedroom home, and now insects will get involved. They will constantly be swarming around your body, and if anyone tries to get close enough to inspect the dead body with the mystical rodents living inside there, they will be swarmed by insects until they back off or are killed. That is a pretty horrible thing.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have SCP-354. 354 is a pool of red liquid discovered in northern Canada. Its consistency is similar to human blood, giving it the nickname of Blood Pond. Tests have shown though that the pool is not of biological nature. So far, a bottom to the pool has not been found. A zone has been constructed around it to protect the public, known as Area 354. In this area, the Foundation has observed entities emerging from the pool and attempting to escape from the enclosure. Almost every creature has been extremely hostile and highly dangerous. It's rumored that 354 was first discovered by survivors of a plane crash in the area who happened upon it by chance. 354 has already developed into a local urban legend long before the Foundation discovered and contained it. So far, they have been largely successful in containing the creatures that emerged from the pool and have only lost a few personnel. Without understanding what exactly 354 is though, there is always the worry that something truly horrific will one day emerge from Blood Pond. Moving on to number 9 now, we have SCP-221. 221 is a pair of gold tweezers from the 16th or 17th century. Researchers removed parts of the tweezer for testing, and when they came back to it later, they found it had somehow restored the gold that they had taken from it. It's theorized that 221 uses minute amounts of gold in the human body to regenerate itself. 221 causes OCD in any person who uses it on their own body. They will slowly remove all the hair from their body with the tweezer, but they won't stop there. Soon they will use 221 to remove fingernails and toenails, then teeth, and then they will use it to remove their own organs. They will start with their eyes and skin and then move on to the liver and pancreas. If they can't use 221 to remove them, they may even use their own hands. If 221 is taken away from the person, they will become violent and manic, using their own hands to finish the job they started. It affects different people in different ways, but if nobody intervenes, 221 will always eventually be the end of anyone who comes into contact with it. Moving on to number 8 now, we have SCP-695. To the untrained eye, 695 resembles a parasitic eel. It has a multi-stage life cycle and uses humans as its primary host. They are about 10 to 15 centimeters in size and they have fully translucent skin and bones. Adults will attempt to enter male human bodies when they are present or around in infested waters. 695 enters the human body via the mouth, nose, anus, or urethra. Once inside the body, 695 burrows into the nervous system or reproductive system and begins its gestation period. During this time, the subject will experience twitching, burning, intense thirst, light sensitivity, hallucinations, and increased aggression. This will most likely cause them to attack a nearby female in the most heinous ways imaginable and causing 695 to spread to its next victim. Moving on to number 7 now, we have 001. This is said to be a humanoid entity approximately 700 cubits in height. It is currently being contained in an undisclosed location near the intersection of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Because security is so tight, there isn't too much that we know about 001, but this is what we've gathered. It has a number of luminous wing-like appendages that burst out of its shoulders, back, temples, ankles, and wrists. The strange thing about the wings is that nobody can agree exactly how many there are. Some say 2, while others have claimed to see 108. 001 carries a weapon, possibly a sword or a knife. Either way, it emits flames at temperatures close to the surface of the sun. Now, despite Despite this, the heat does not seem to damage any of the surrounding area. However, any entity that approaches within 1 kilometer of 001 is immediately struck by the weapon and removed from existence. Some think that 001 is an angel of the apocalypse mentioned in the texts of many Abrahamic religions. The founder of the SCP says that he made the organization after an encounter with 001 in which this being told him to prepare. So then he set about cataloging and containing any supernatural beings that pose a threat to humanity, aka the SCP Foundation. Coming at number 6 now, we have SCP-096. This SCP is described as a humanoid creature measuring approximately 2.38 meters in height. It has very little muscle mass, possibly due to malnutrition. Now at first glance, the most notable thing is its arms, which are said to be grossly out of proportion with the rest of its body. Its skin is devoid of pigmentation and covered with almost no body hair. Things get even weirder though. 096 is said to be able to open its jaw 4 times the norm of an average human. Its eyes are featureless, and the Foundation isn't even sure if it's blind or not. When left alone, 096 appears to be very docile, spending most of its time up against a wall. That all changes though when anyone sees its face. Now if that happens, it will become emotionally distressed. You don't even have to see it directly. Even seeing a video recording or a photo of its face will cause 096 to cover its own face and begin screaming, crying and babbling incoherently. It will then begin running to the person who saw it and won't stop until it finds them and kills them. So far, it has a 100% success rate. After the killing, 096 will sit down, calm down, and become docile once again. Next up at number 5 now, we have SCP-555. 555 is a metal cylinder with rounded ends, 1.25 centimeters and 8 centimeters long, similar to a magnet commonly fed to cattle to prevent disease. It emits a mysterious energy field which seems to attract dead human tissue. This includes hair separated from the body, corpses, shed skin cells, and in some extreme cases, layers of skin. 555 attracts dead human tissue with a greater force if there is more dead human tissue around it. It was originally found in a cemetery in California. The Foundation was alerted to a possible SCP after a coffin due to be buried that day was pulled right out of the pallbearer's grip and landed on the grave of someone who died in 1948. It was found that all the surrounding coffins around that grave had been pulled towards the coffin with 555 inside, and it has been kept by the Foundation for study ever since. Moving on to number 4 now, we have SCP-895. 895 is an oak coffin. I wish I could say that was the creepiest part, but it gets a lot worse. It was found in a mortuary and was reported to the Foundation after unusual behaviour was noticed around it. The staff said that they didn't know where 895 came from or how it was transported to the mortuary. When agents attempted to open 895, they found it empty. However, they soon noticed that it caused disruptions in video and photographic surveillance equipment within 50 meters. These are always disturbing hallucinations with varying durations and regularity. These get worse the closer the camera is. Within a range of 5 meters from 895, the footage captured can cause severe psychological trauma and hysteria to most subjects. All of this does not affect observers who are physically near 895, only the ones watching the footage. Next up at the number 3 spot now, we have SCP-426. I am SCP-426. If you're wondering why I am saying that I am SCP-426, well, that's one of the weird things about this SCP. It can only be spoken about in the first person. It's impossible for anyone to talk about me in the third person, as you can see right now. The strange thing is that I am just an ordinary toaster, able to toast bread when supplied with electricity. However, if a person is in the continuous presence of me for over 2 months, they begin to identify themselves as a toaster. Unless forcibly restrained, these people will ultimately harm themselves in their attempts to become an ordinary toaster. The SCP Foundation found me in a home where some of the family had died. I was given to them in a box with no card or no markings. The daughter of that family had died from electric discharge while trying to devour an electric socket. The mother was found dead after gorging herself on nearly 10 kilograms of bread before her stomach burst open and she died of internal bleeding. I was confiscated by the Foundation after police noted my unusual properties. Moving on to number 2 now, we have SCP-1959. 1959 is an unmarked Soviet spacesuit that is in continuous orbit around Earth. At first, they thought it was an inanimate object, but then it appeared to be moving. The suit resembled a Soviet SK-1 model used in the Vostok program. It's in good condition, except for the visor, which is badly damaged and completely misted over, preventing any observation of its interior. The Foundation first detected considerable amounts of gamma radiation emerging from it. 1959 remains motionless for long periods of time, but then, randomly, it moves erratically. It appears to be in great distress and thrashes everywhere, trying to break its own visor. The suit seems to be indestructible and can ram through any obstacle it encounters. All attempts to communicate with 1959 have failed. The Foundation believe that 1959 is a well-known Soviet astronaut whose mission ended in disaster. Now some dark force keeps him orbiting Earth forever and prevents him from taking his own life. And finally, number 1 now, we have SCP-957. 957 is a humanoid entity currently residing in a house in Kentucky under the Foundation's observation. The creature is about 2 meters in height and weighs 75 kilograms. One of the most startling first impressions is that it has no internal organs. It also appears to not require any food, water, or sleep. By talking to and observing 957, the Foundation has figured out exactly what it does. 957 will always live in a house inhabited by a single human. When that human dies, it will instantly appear in the nearest house with a single human. Once it has its target, 957 will force the human through a portal in their own chest cavity, where they will remain for 4 hours before emerging again. After this, the human will be missing their eyes and large chunks of their memory. They will believe that they have been blind for all of their life, and that 957 is actually just a close family member or friend. They will show affection for 957, but will never touch it. Once a month, they will then go into crowded areas and beg people for help. Once they get another person back to their house, 957 will reduce them to a pile of organs and then burn the rest of them in the fire. Then their life will continue for another month before they repeat the whole process again. Starting off at number 10 now, we have SCP-2316. 2316 is a manifestation. It's a manifestation that appears in an undisclosed lake somewhere in the world. It's a manifestation of a group of human corpses that float on the surface of the water there. Subjects who have witnessed this report that the bodies are of human beings that they recognize, typically from their childhood. Subjects have often tried to enter the lake to touch the instances of 2316. They find though that touching one of the bodies will cause more of them to appear around them in the water. This will draw them further into the lake. Individuals who enter the lake in this way are lost forever, and to date none have been recovered. Next up at number 9 now, we have SCP-939. If you just see a picture of 939, it looks like an amphibian. A scary amphibian, but an amphibian nonetheless. This isn't any normal amphibian though. I'll stop saying amphibian now, I think. 939 is also known as with many voices. These predators are bright red, each one as big as a large adult and weighing over 400 pounds. They appear to have almost no vital organs. They lack a nervous system, heart, or digestive tract, and their long heads have no eyes. The only noticeable facial feature is their long red teeth. These creatures have no brain, but that hasn't stopped them from developing an intelligent hunting tactic. If you remember earlier, I said it's known as with many voices. Well, that's because when 939 kills a person, it learns their voice forever. 939 will then use their voice to lure in the next victim. 939 will call out for help, and then when the person gets near, it will kill them with a swift bite. If by some miracle the victim manages to survive being eaten whole and can escape, 939 has one last trick up its sleeve. It exhales an amnesia-inducing chemical which leaves the victim forgetting what just happened to them. This lets 939 try its voice trick all over again, and this time it won't miss that bite. Moving on to number 8 now, we have SCP-3063. 3063 is a telepathic Class 5 reality-bending fly. You heard me. That's literally what it is. On the surface, it resembles an adult male housefly. It is currently believed that only one manifestation of 3063 can exist at any given time, but that is yet to be confirmed by the Foundation. Manifestations are considered destroyed when they have sustained damage that would be sufficient to kill a normal fly, at which point it will manifest somewhere else on Earth. 3063 will promise an individual anything they desire in exchange for an unspecified price. These offers will include large sums of money, the love of other individuals, political power, and reality-bending abilities. It's able to read the minds of the individual to tailor its offer to them, but it won't discuss anything other than the agreement. Now of course there's a catch. After 6.5 years, fertilized eggs will appear and hatch in the person's lungs, throat, stomach, intestines, sinuses, ear canals, and even their rectum. The newly emerged flies will then consume their host whole and breed with each other until the host dies, producing over 50 million flies. So guys, if a mind-reading fly offers you a large sum of money or power, just walk away. That's my advice. Next, at number 7 now, we have SCP-5131. To talk about this one, I have to first talk about SCP-513. 513 is a rusty cowbell. It's covered in rust, which the Foundation has been unable to remove. Any noise produced by 513 immediately induces a strong anxiety in all sentient beings who hear it, regardless of their current mental state. They report feelings of being watched and having elevated heart rates. Then, roughly an hour later from this time, subjects report seeing 5131 when opening doors, walking past mirrors, turning their heads, or performing any action that results in a sudden change in visual perception. Descriptions of its appearance are largely unreliable. Test subjects are unable to provide complete accounts of sightings due to their exhaustion and degraded mental health. Upon being sighted, 5131 reportedly turns away and runs out of view before disappearing without a trace. Subjects are then stalked, assaulted in their sleep until being hounded to their untimely death, usually by suicide. Moving on to number 6 now, we have SCP-1983. Now from the outside, 1983 resembles a chemical plant. It's been nicknamed the farmhouse, and in my opinion, it's one of the creepiest buildings we've talked about in an SCP video. Here's the thing, if you enter the farmhouse without leaving the front door open, you can't leave. It's that simple. The door that would have led back outside now just leads to different rooms. You're now trapped in a maze, and you're not alone there, but that's really not a good thing. This alternate reality is inhabited by strange creatures said to be made of shadows. They can only manifest themselves when strong light is cast, so you're advised to go against your own instincts and try and stay in the dark around them. In one of the rooms you will find a giant pile of human hearts. Yeah. This one ain't pretty. If the creatures do get hold of you, they will reach right through you, into you, and pull out your heart as if it was an apple on a tree. Then your shadow will crawl out of the heart, only to become one of the shadow creatures. Most of what the Foundation knows about 1983 comes from a journal written by an SCP agent who got stuck in the room and slowly lost his hope and sanity. The Foundation's website contains some excerpts, and it doesn't make for very light reading. Next up at number 5 now, we have SCP-012. 012 is a piece of sheet music written in blood. It was discovered by archaeologist K.M. Sandoval during a dig in an Italian tomb that had been destroyed in a storm. 012 was titled On Mount Golgotha. It appeared to be incomplete. The red and black ink was first thought to be berry or perhaps natural dye, but was later found to be human blood. Even more horrifically, it was the blood of a number of different people. 2 of the discovery team descended into madness upon finding 012. They attempted to use their own blood to finish the composition. This resulted in subsequent symptoms of psychosis and massive trauma. Those subjects who managed to finish a section of the piece of music immediately committed suicide. Many of their last words involved saying the piece was impossible to complete. In the years since its discovery, any attempts to perform the music have resulted in a horrific mess, with each instrument having no harmony whatsoever between each other. The music has only brought madness and death. The Foundation keeps it in a darkened room at all time, locked away where it can't hurt anyone. Moving on to number 4 now, we have SCP-3998. I'm not really sure how to start this one, if I'm honest. Basically, 3998 is a dead human body. The Foundation knows that 3998 died sometime in the late 17th century. It has no legs and is covered in 4th-degree burns. Sometime after its death, its remains were collected and fashioned into a scarecrow, held together by wicker, nails, and wire. Along with these severe burns, 3998 appears to have suffered blunt force trauma across its body. It constantly exudes a flammable liquid from its bones made of ethanol and human fat. Every night from 11 PM to 4 AM, 3998 ignites and is engulfed into flames. It's never harmed by the fire, but when not contained properly, the nearest person will spontaneously ignite. The people 3998 ignites are always those who have killed or physically abused a romantic partner. As its target is burning, large quantities of boiling ethanol appears in their stomach. They will vomit this up, which will ignite and further burn parts of their body. Meanwhile, their stomach violently ruptures, often splitting the victim literally in half as a result. This causes massive internal and external damage very quickly. Survivors are almost non-existent. Moving on to number 3 now, we have SCP-2539. Some roads you aren't supposed to go down. 2539 is a 3.1 kilometer stretch of road near Roehampton, New South Wales. People who drive down it disappear after about 500 meters and will later appear at the other end of the road 7 or 8 hours later. They will show signs of severe dehydration even when given supplies beforehand to prevent this. It gets stranger though. Every single person has reported that during that drive they stop for a highway patrol officer named Miriam Wells. Descriptions of this apparition match that of the real Miriam Wells, a patrol officer who disappeared in late 2009 on a routine patrol. She is usually described as wearing civilian clothes and attempting to ask for directions. In some cases, people report being able to convince the woman to join them in their vehicle. However, when they emerge from 2539 hours later, they find that in place of the woman is instead a heavily scorched and decomposed piece of human flesh in the storage compartment of the vehicle. The source of this is unknown, and the Foundation is continuing its investigation. Next up at number 2 now, we have SCP-1782. Frankly, I can't believe that I didn't include this one in a previous video. Maybe I saw it and just thought that it was too disturbing, but here it is anyway. 1782 is a room measuring 42 or 45 square meters in an abandoned apartment complex located in Kiev, Ukraine. The creepy thing about the room is that every 3 days at exactly 3:12 AM, the room changes instantaneously. Perhaps the only thing the different versions of the room have in common is just how strange they are. The SCP monitored these changing rooms for a number of days. The first time the report was, room materializes empty. The sound of metal scraping against metal can be heard. A disembodied female voice can be heard repeating the phrase, shakes me, makes me lighter, until 3:12 AM. 3 days later, the room changed again and the report read, room materializes empty. Sound does not travel through the interior, although upon further inspection, a small area on the left wall of the floor pan emits a faint metallic grating noise. 3 days after that, the report read, an elderly human feeding itself to a group of kakapo. Did not express pain, appears ambivalent. The Foundation has set up a perimeter around 1782 to monitor it at all times. So far, only unmanned drones were allowed inside until they figure out whether this anomaly is a danger to people at large. And finally, number 1 now, we have SCP-082. 082 is genetically human. However, through some unknown process, it has grown to giant proportions. It is 8 feet tall and weighs over 700 pounds. It has disproportionate features, large round eyes and jaw, a bulbous nose and sunken eyes. Scans have shown countless bullets and several knife and saw blades lodged into 082's flesh. 082 refers to itself as Fernand and speaks fluent French and heavily accented English. It seems civil at first, but SCP-0823 has been known to attack people. It will interrupt conversations with a victim by just devouring their head. Its jaw is strong enough to crack bone, and it seems to enjoy biting down on people's skulls. Attacks are seemingly random, with no motivation whatsoever. Whether 082 has recently eaten seems to have no effect on its cannibalistic hunger. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the recap. We're going to have a lot of interesting theories, discussions and facts about 087 in this video, so I think it's best to start with a recap. A bunch of 087 facts packed into one point just to start off with. Essentially, for those of you that don't know, SCP-087 is a dark staircase that descends seemingly forever. Any light higher than 75 watts is ineffective in lighting up the staircase much more than a single flight of stairs. After a few flights down, a little girl's voice can be heard in the darkness below, crying out for help. She sounds like she's about 200 meters below, but as you descend, the girl never sounds any nearer. After descending for long enough, SCP agents have encountered some sort of being. Basically, it's a bodiless face in the darkness. It has no pupils, nostrils, or even a mouth. The face is referred to as 0871. Those who have encountered it have experienced intense paranoia and fear before the encounter, and then just sheer terror during the encounter. Now, let's talk details. At number 9 now we have Exploration 1. This was the first time that the SCP Foundation sent one of its agents down to investigate. In the report, the agent is referred to as D8432 and described as a 43-year-old Caucasian male of average build and appearance and unremarkable psychological background. It also says that he is a Class D agent because he mishandled a case involving a different SCP, specifically which SCP has been redacted from the record. Also redacted is the name of the doctor at the control panel who the agent is reporting to using an audio headset. The first mission was where the Foundation realized that excess light gets absorbed down there, that the staircase seems to be infinite and that the little girl's crying never gets any closer. It was also the first time they encountered SCP-0871, more commonly known as the floating face, that caused the agent to run for their life to the top of the stairs. Next up at number 8 now we have The Game. There is actually an experimental horror game that is based on SCP-087. It's called SCP-087-B. It was made by someone called Regardless. The gameplay leads the player through hallways and down staircases while attempting to avoid monsters. There are a total of 270 floors in the game. On the 250th floor, the walls close in on the player and they will be ambushed. Now, I won't say any more about that as I'm veering dangerously close to spoiler territory. Suffice to say, there are many hallways, rooms, paths and mazes to challenge the player, and of course many scary monsters with uniquely disturbing mechanics and quotes. The game has proved to be very popular among the SCP fanbase and has been credited as the stepping stone for the creation of an even bigger game, SCP Containment Breach. I haven't played it, but the name sounds cool. Next up at number 7 now we have The Author. Sorry to burst the bubble for anyone here, but as much as we love the SCP Foundation, it's fiction. Don't worry though, we're going to jump right back into that world in the next point, but for now, I want to give credit to the author of this story. I did some digging and found out that the author is called Zaidi. He submitted the 087 story to the SCP Wiki on the 10th of December 2009, which means in about a year's time from this recording, the story will be a decade old. Have a look at the date today. If it's after December 10th, 2019, then the story of 087 is now over a decade old. It was a slow rise to fame for this story and it's been tweaked a lot since then, but its age and popularity is a testament to its success. It's already inspired a game. What's next for 087? Moving on to number 6 now we have Exploration 2. This was the next attempt to explore 087. The agent was a 28-year-old male who was equipped with more lights for his voyage down the stairs. He was given 100 small LED lights with adhesive backs on them to stick onto the wall after each flight of stairs. Just like the first time, he continued down and could hear the little girl deep below him. This time though, he stopped at the 51st landing down. Footage showed an arched gouge in the concrete wall, estimated to be approximately 50 centimeters long and 10 centimeters wide. The first step down was smashed into rubble. It looked like something had just completely obliterated itself through the wall. The gouge mark was as smooth as glass. The agent continued all the way down to the 89th landing. He was confronted by the face at this point, about 74 minutes after the exploration began. Just like the last agent, he freaked out and began running up the stairs, despite the doctor pleading with him to stop and get a better look at the face. He collapsed on the 17th landing for almost 15 minutes. The control room picked up the sound of a rapid heartbeat that didn't belong to the agent, along with a strange crackling noise. When he woke up, he ran all the way to the top, sat down, and then fell into a deep coma. Moving on to number 5 now, we have Exploration 3. No need to explain this one now. This was the Foundation's third attempt at exploring 087. They used a 23-year-old female as their new agent. As she descended, she didn't find any of the lights that had been placed on the walls during the last exploration. She also heard the girl crying. When she got to the 17th landing, the same landing where the last agent collapsed, she found something on the ground that smelt really bad. It was sticky and it stuck to her shoe. She said it smelt like metal and urine. She passed the 51st landing with the strange slash mark in the wall. When she reached the 89th floor, instead of the face, she found a hole. It was about 1 meter in diameter and she almost fell through it. A light flashed from inside the hole for just a moment. The doctor advised her to continue. She continued down to the 469th landing, 1.8 kilometers below the entrance, and still the girl sounded no closer. Then she encountered the face behind her. She tried to get away by running down the the stairs. Eventually she tripped and fell unconscious. The face was seen approaching the camera, staring right into the lens, then the audio and video cut out for good. Coming in number 4 now, we have the psychological backgrounds. One thing you may notice when looking through the exploration records is that they always refer to the psychological background of the agent. In the first exploration, the agent is described as having an unremarkable psychological background. At first, this doesn't really stand out. It seems just like irrelevant information. Maybe it is, but then when you look at the exploration 2, the agent's psychological background indicates, quote, no abnormalities except an extreme hatred for women, end quote. It also says that he has an extensive record of something that has been expunged from the record. Finally, exploration 3 described the agent sent in as having a history of depression. Why was this included? Now you might say it was just because the Foundation wanted to keep strict records of everything that happened in each exploration, or maybe they suspected that 087 responded differently depending on the psychological background of an individual. Maybe you, watching this video, would have a totally unique experience there. How's that for a theory? Moving on to number 3 now, we have D-Class. Some of you who have read all the material there is on 087 may have noticed that all the agents are referred to by a series of numbers and letters. They always start with D. They are known as D-Class personnel. What this means isn't explicit, but there are some clues. Some people think that these agents are actually former or even current prisoners. In Exploration 2, when the agent is hesitant about continuing, the doctor reminds them that they have to continue as per their agreement. Perhaps if they complete the exploration, they can get released. If that theory is true, do you think it's okay to use prisoners as lab rats for these SCP experiments? I love how we're now discussing the morality of all of this now. Let's move on. Next up at number 2 now, we have Exploration 4. After reading the first 3 explorations, most people are desperate to find out what happens in the 4th and final one, even though they may be terrified of what's to come. Unfortunately though, the data has been expunged, meaning the Foundation deems it to be too sensitive, perhaps even a danger to public safety. In the first 3 explorations, we saw things get progressively more terrifying. The Foundation didn't expunge the data though, which begs the question, what could possibly have happened on the 4th exploration for it to be too much for us to see? I found a thread on Reddit of people discussing this very question. In the end, people came to the conclusion that in a way, not knowing is actually more terrifying than knowing. People say they want to know how the 08 story ends because nothing is scarier than the fear of the unknown. And finally, number 1 now, we have containment. If you go to the SCP wiki, at the very top you can see the Foundation's motto: secure, contain and protect. Once an anomaly has been reported and identified as an SCP, the Foundation attempts to understand it and then make sure it can't harm the public. When it comes to 087, the record has an addendum section. It states that for 2 weeks after the expunged Exploration 4, several members of the staff and students from the campus where 087 is located reported a knocking sound coming from the door leading to 087. As part of their commitment to contain SCPs and protect the public, the Foundation fitted the door with 6 centimeters of thick industrial padding. After that, all reports of knocking ceased. It's important to remember though that it doesn't mean the knocking just stopped. It might be that nobody could just hear it anymore, and so the reports of it stopped. Do you see what I mean? The fact that this is even noteworthy means that maybe there wasn't any knocking before. Is that a clue as to what happened during Exploration 4? Is there someone now trapped inside there forever? I didn't think 087 could get any more scary, but yeah, that thought has kind of pushed it over the edge. At number 10 now, we have the recap. Let's quickly talk about 174 before we go into any details. 174 is a wooden ventriloquist doll, 21 centimeters in height. It has ragged clothing and seems to date from the early 20th century. When looked at in the peripherals of vision, 174 will stare at you with a longing and sad expression. This disappears when staring at 174 directly. People nearby report a general feeling of sadness or sympathy toward the figure, but cannot explain the reason for these feelings. Prolonged exposure can lead an individual to personify the figure, treating it as if it was a real person. And we haven't even got to what happens when people touch it. Next up at number 9 now, we have contact. Didn't have to wait too long to find out about the touching thing, did we? Things get taken up a notch here. When 174 is placed on people's hands, they express an urge to converse with it. The person will begin speaking to 174 and moving its mouth. Their voice raises in pitch and becomes childlike. They speak for the puppet. The Foundation's own recordings with high sensitivity microphones have determined that at no point does 174 speak. All of the sound seems to be coming from the person, and despite their lack of experience as a ventriloquist, the act is always perfect. This conversation will quickly lead to 174 talking through the person about its own past, a history of being abandoned or mistreated. An interesting fact is that through all the experiments done so far, a story has never been repeated. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the psychic link. By this point in the story, most people naturally ask one question: how is 174 doing this? It seems to obviously have a power over people. Is it voodoo? Is it a trick? Maybe some kind of technology? Well, the research is still ongoing, but so far the Foundation believes it has something to do with psychic energy. In the report, the Foundation noted that the people most likely to display the behavior we've talked about had low psychic resistance scores. We have no way of knowing what this test is to come up with a score that they're talking about, but it seems like standard practice for the Foundation to do. You guys might think that they want people with a low psychic resistance for these tests, but actually it's the opposite. There's no telling what SCPs like 174 would do with a low resistance mind. At the very beginning of the entry, they recommend that only people with high psychic resistance scores interact with 174, and that everyone in contact with 174 undergoes psychological evaluations afterwards. Moving on to number 7 now, we have baby. The Foundation noticed that if certain people are left alone with 174 for long enough, they not only start to talk for it and hold it like a baby, they begin to get very protective over it, let's say. This is perhaps one of the creepiest quirks about the whole thing. By this point, some people begin to refer to 174 as their baby and use similar strong terms of endearment when referring to it. Unlike the other symptoms, this referring to 174 as their baby doesn't actually stop when they are removed from the room. Usually it takes hours for people to stop referring to 174 as their baby. The Foundation even noticed one case where an individual referred to 174 as their baby for 2 whole weeks. Next up at number 6 now, we have Addendum 1. On the official record, the Foundation gives us not 1 but 2 addendums, extra bits of information that have been added on to the report. There are 2 logs of real interactions on here that were observed between a subject and 174. In the first one, the subject is a 21-year-old female with no history of violent crime. She puts her hand on 174 and after 2 minutes she asks, "What happened to you?" 174 then begins to talk about how it was left behind and damaged in a house fire by its last owner. Remember that, because it'll be important later. She consoles 174. 174 says it's lonely and it wants friends. She then begins to pound on the door to the room with her free hand. When the guard enters, she then recoils into the corner of the room and begins whispering to 174. The guard removed her from the room, at which point she then tried to escape, screaming, "They have him. My wonderful baby." Next up at number 5 now, we have Addendum 2. It seems only right that we transition straight from the first one to the second one now. The second one was a lot shorter, and it wasn't actually an experiment like the first one was. Essentially, a doctor who works for the Foundation entered storage unit 7 to find 174 sitting on the floor next to its containment unit, looking directly at the main entrance door. The door to 174's unit had been sealed shut, with no access having been logged in the previous week. After being put back into containment, video surveillance was installed within storage unit 7 as a precaution against future translocations, and a GPS tracking unit was attached to 174. That's crazy. Essentially, they found 174 had moved outside of its cell even though the door was locked. They were so concerned that they put a tracker on a doll. Let's not forget, this is still a doll. It's not supposed to move. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Doctor. I want to talk about the Doctor in this whole thing. Their full name is actually redacted from the whole report. We only know them as Dr. A, so that's what I'll refer to them as. We know that Dr. A is in charge, as at the beginning of the report, the Foundation instructs that any abnormal activity must be reported to Dr. A. Dr. A was also the one that found that 174 had been moved out of its cell in the previous one we talked about. We also know that Dr. A was the supervising researcher during Addendum 1, the one where the woman had to be ripped away from 174. Dr. A was also the one who ordered the experiment was concluded. Right after that, it says the woman was terminated. Now I'm really hoping that just means her job, but yeah, I really fear the worst with that one. Terminated. Next up at number 3 now we have childhood. As with many SCPs, the Foundation is often interested in how they affect individuals differently. It's a good way of figuring out what makes an SCP tick, and also to uphold the Foundation's mantra of secure, contain, protect. Well, one theory that seems to be going around is that 174 responds to people's childhood events. Researchers have noticed that each story seems to be based around a theme that will have particular resonance with the current subject. The first addendum says that 174 began talking about how it was left behind in a house fire. Researchers immediately noted that the woman who was with 174 was the victim of an arson attack when she was younger. Is this a coincidence? Possibly, but it seems like 174 may have known this, perhaps through the psychic link we talked about earlier. Moving on to number 2 now, we have 174J. In my quest for more information on 174, I found a page on the SCP Sandbox wiki that describes something called 174J. This is interesting because it's not mentioned anywhere else in the report. 174J is a malevolent entity that takes the form of a purple dinosaur. If you're racking your brain now thinking of how many purple dinosaurs you know, there's really only one. It's Barney. It's said to be capable of producing an unidentified mental effect that induces happiness and an urge to act like a small child to anyone who views it. If it's around actual small children of that age, it will begin a ritual where it begins singing a happy themed song based on itself.
Oh, that's because I have so many friends that I love.
Perhaps most disturbingly was the fact that 174J escaped from containment and caused other SCPs to escape too. What exactly is the link between 174 and 174J? Why did the Foundation categorize these two so closely? Perhaps 174 was the first malicious children's toy they found, and everything similar now falls under this 174 category. That's what I think anyway. And finally, number 1 now, we have the timeline. One thing that I started to think about when I read all of this was how long has 174 been with the Foundation? Well, the fact that it's only 174 on the list says a lot. That means the Foundation only discovered 173 other SCPs before this one, so it must have been fairly early on. The dates are expunged from the record, but we know that experts said the doll must have come from the early 20th century at the earliest. I also know that the report was published in 2010. That doesn't mean that's when they first got their hands on 174 though. The report says they had to terminate the girl in that experiment because they hadn't invented amnestics, the drug used to wipe people's memories of an SCP. However, in that very same record, the Foundation recommends using Class B or stronger amnestics to treat people who mentally collapse after an encounter with 174. This suggests that they had 174 in their possession for a long time now and may have done many experiments on it. Some people speculate that they may still have 174 somewhere out there. This creepy puppet doll sits in a sealed room and waits for the next person whose mind it can manipulate and twist. What a lovely thought.
Coming in at number 10, we have SCP-1591. So SCP-1591 is a big, beautiful, levitating glass star sculpture. It seems that at the core of the sculpture, there is glass in the shape of a star weighing around 12 kilos. This in turn is surrounded by further coloured glass panels weighing 12 kilos each. It's a heavy enough star. Here's a picture for those of you struggling to visualise, and really a picture is all you want here because you actually couldn't look at this SCP directly. It seems that SCP-1591 is kept in a room with 30 high-intensity spotlights pointed right at it. These spotlights need to be replaced monthly. Why? Well, SCP-151 produces a light of its own, which increases in brightness and intensity over time, especially in dark environments. When its light shines on a solid object, it at first becomes transparent and then slowly fades away, hence why the spotlight needs replacing as they slowly break down and stop working. Now, if a person is directly exposed to the light, they will lose the ability to speak and will try and run away. Unfortunately though, the light will destroy them, eventually making them disappear. It seems that that SCP-1591's power was increased when the site was bombed in the World War. It seems that as time goes on, the brightness of the lights used to quell 1591 needs to increase. For example, if a 40-watt bulb contained it a week ago, by now it will need a 60-watt, so on and so forth. Each month when the spotlights are replaced, they have to get brighter. Now this SCP can only be stopped by bright lights, but eventually we'll run out of lights bright enough. When we do, it will start evaporating things on Earth, everything around it. I guess our only option is to take it to the sun. Okay, I'm a drama girl, so I will absolutely bite. I love the concept behind SCP-701, but it's deadly. Information coming here at number 9. SCP-701 is a 5-act play named The Hanged King's Tragedy. There are multiple copies of the play on lockdown in an anonymous storage site in the SCP Foundation. The observed behavior surrounding SCP-701 is as follows. A group of people decide to do a play, The Hanged King's Tragedy, and as they start rehearsing it, they notice that the content changes every time they meet up, but they don't really realize it, just something weird's going on. As the play begins for its opening night, it's a sellout, a mysterious figure, SCP-701-1, appears on the stage at the end of Act 1. Now the figure is a tall humanoid dressed in black with a hood over its head. The audience noticed, but the cast do not. The audience obviously think it's part of the play, and they're enjoying it. He then continues to appear at intervals before officially coming on stage as the Hanged King during Act 5. Under his gaze, the cast then begin to kill themselves on stage until they're all dead. This is when the audience realize that actually this is no play. Riots break out in the audience, and if any audience member manages to leave, they do so in a daze, committing random acts of violence until they're killed or intercepted by members of the SCP Foundation. If audience members survive and are treated, they're often psychotic for the rest of their life. Some may have no memory of the incident. The reason this SCP could end the world lays in the fact that a VHS and DVD of the performance exists. Anyone who watches it would be prone to hateful and violent outbursts. One play that I don't think I'd enjoy. Coming into number 8, we have SCP-173. The sculpture. This SCP is all of your weeping angel nightmares come true, although we all do have to enjoy the rhyme of saying SCP-173. Absolutely none of us wants to be around this super creep though, I'm telling you. SCP-173 is on lockdown in a sealed container in Unit 19 of the SCP Foundation. The SCP itself has been known as the art piece, as it looks like some kind of ghoulish contemporary art sculpture from hell. Before we talk about the main concern with the SCP, I'd just like to highlight that it seems to seep feces and blood, which is pretty damn unsanitary. Aside from that though, like with the weeping angels in Doctor Who, you basically never ever want to close your eyes around it. Why? Because if you do, it will come closer and closer to you, and when it does finally get to you, it will snap your neck at the base of your skull. It's a killer, so no blinking. The SCP-173 will not stop until everyone who has ever blinked in its presence is dead. So next up, we kind of basically have the exact opposite of SCP-173 at number 7. We have SCP-096. So, I'm not going to show you a picture of SCP-096. Instead, you can look at me. You'll find out why. Often referred to as the Shy Guy, SCP-096 will get you. I guess they all get you in the end, don't they? SCP-096 is kept in a locked steel cube and is checked up weekly for cracks and holes. There can be absolutely no CCTV or video surveillance of any kind when it comes to SCP-096. Any images of this SCP must be destroyed. You can't even draw it. Why? SCP-096 is a humanoid-looking creature with long limbs. It has blank pale eyes and its jaw can open 4 times wider than that of a normal human. Unlike with SCP-173, you can't look at it ever. If you do look at it, it will freak out and kill you. Exactly how it kills you is classified. SCP-096 is noted for freaking out, crying, screaming, and becoming crazed when people look at it. Similarly, if a picture or a recording is taken, it will go crazy and kill. It seems that even looking at a photo or video of this SCP can kill you too. Exactly how? Once again, I don't know. How could it destroy the world? Well, if enough people saw it, hello, dead. Coming into number 6, we have SCP-1048. Okay, but like an SCP that looks like a teddy bear. I mean, that absolutely can't be good news, can it? And no, it isn't. SCP-1048 at first seems like a lovable teddy. cute. It can move of its own accord, communicate through cutesy gestures, and loves hugs. Or so it seems. But it is all a ruse. SCP-1048 will often hug people's legs and draw childlike pictures and give them as gifts. It will even dance and jump, anything to make someone like it. But make no mistake, a lot like people who try hard in life, SCP-1048 is pure evil, something the SCP Foundation discovered the hard way. On one occasion, the SCP was observed having entirely replicated itself out of metal scraps. It seems that SCP-1048 has the ability to replicate using any given material, and for this reason, no teddy bears are allowed in the SCP Foundation whatsoever. Prior to the ear incident, this SCP was free to roam its holding site, but following the nightmare, the Foundation realized its true intentions. Oh, what was the ear incident? Let me tell you. It seems that SCP-1048 replicated itself out of human ears, removing the ears of all of the people around it within a 10-meter radius. A teddy bear made of ears. On one occasion, it appears that the SCP was able to abort a pregnant staff member's baby as it began replicating itself with baby parts. Honestly, a world filled with SCP teddy bears that pretend to be cuddly but then use deception and murder in order to replicate, honestly, it sounds like a dangerous world to me. Coming into number 5, we have SCP-1471. SCP-1471 will wreak havoc with your mobile devices. It's a free app usually named Malo or version 1.00 in app stores. Now there's no listed developer, and somehow it's able to bypass approval. Once the app has been downloaded, users won't see any icon or shortcut and they will not be able to delete it. They're doomed. The SCP will then begin sending images to the phone every 3 to 6 hours. The image will contain SCP-1471-A, a humanoid with a goat-like skull with black hair. In the first 24 hours, the images will show the figure at locations frequented by the individual who downloaded the app. In the following 24 hours, the SCP will show up at places recently visited by the individual. After 72 hours, the individual will receive real-time images of SCP-1471-A within close proximity to them. Those who have had the app for 90 hours or more will begin to visualize SCP-1471-A within their peripheral vision, or even their reflections, or both. From then on in, it's a downward spiral. Individuals will actually see the SCP, who will try and communicate with them in a language that they don't understand. So, how could this end the world? Well, almost everyone has a phone, and this SCP will send people mad thinking they're seeing a skull with hair and crazy eyes. While this SCP has never been reported to have killed anyone, with people losing their minds around it, it would be hazardous to mental health and productivity. People wouldn't get any work done in a best case scenario. In a worst case, they would cause accidents or perhaps even try and gouge out their own eyes, which, again, infections. Nightmare. Pus. This SCP will send you insane at number 4. We have SCP-055. This SCP is literally unknowable. It's unknowable by definition. Whatever it is, it makes humans forget about it. Information about it just leaks out of humans' brains. It's a self-keeping secret. It is placed at Site 19, although how the facility was built, we don't actually know. All we know is that Site 19 is 5 by 5.2.5 in meters. What am I going to do with this information? Like, nothing. We don't know what's in this space, and those who go on to investigate it forget. Research has been conducted on those who have been exposed to the SCP, and it seems that the only way of knowing it is by a series of yes-no answers. Now the loophole here is that while you can't know what it is, or say what it is, you can know what it isn't. It seems one person question was asked if it was a sphere, to which they said no, but afterwards they didn't know what they were being asked, so not a sphere. Good. Great. What is it? Well, we don't know. To me, this makes me worried because it means we have no idea what it's up to. It could absolutely be plotting to end the world, and knowing the SCP Foundation, it probably is. Shall we start with a picture at number 3 to get the ball rolling? Sure, here it is. This is SCP-610, and it's an infection that causes serious and grotesque mutation. Hip hip hurrah, and we're back to pus again. Exposure to SCP-610 at first leads individuals to develop an itchy rash along with skin sensitivity. The rash will turn into heavy lesions and areas of what look like fresh scar tissue. These scar tissue wounds will then consume the whole body, and the process gets even quicker in warm conditions. It can take anywhere from 5 minutes in hot conditions to 5 hours in cold conditions, and it can absolutely destroy a person. The infected then no longer resembles a person and starts functioning at very high speed. The infected skin will start to grow rapidly and move of its own accord, with limbs becoming long and then branching out like roots, forming other fleshy limbs. Blah. Without containment, they will continue to grow, and any living organism who touches it will become infected too. Fun. Infection is spread by touch, and sometimes even spores in the air. The infection was first noted in Siberia, and while it has been contained, it hasn't been destroyed. The areas infected continue to be so, and they are protected by SCP under the guise of military operations. If the containment was breached, then this infection could absolutely destroy the world. Coming into number 2, we have SCP-1548. Well, to me, this really is the baddie to end all baddies, except our number 1, of course. SCP-1548 is cosmic, and it wants us dead. SCP-1548 is a living star, an evil solar system moving towards us at breakneck speed. It seems this SCP was first discovered in the 1970s, with astronomers thinking it was simply another star, until it started moving towards us at increasing speed. Oh, and it's speaking to us via radio signals. It's a sentient star. Hurrah! So, what's it saying? That it wants to destroy all life in its path and it finds us pathetic. Good. Oh, and it also knows we're watching it too. How will it destroy us? Well, it seems it will steal us from our sun's orbit and then gobble us up in its fiery mouth. How long until it reaches us? Well, that's classified. Finally, coming into number 1 when you thought it couldn't get any worse. It does. It's the Scarlet King. Ah, the original SCP, or the original evil. The Scarlet King was originally named as SCP-001 until the SCP Foundation realized that actually he cannot be categorized as he is malice itself. Let me explain. It seems that the Scarlet King is a creature, to quote Jack Finch, whose sole demonic occupation is to usher in Armageddon and the end of all creation. Sure. The Scarlet King is the most malevolent entity in the universe and was born alongside the Tree of Knowledge, or so they say. The Scarlet King is as old as knowledge itself, and it seems that he's the overlord of darkness itself too. So basically, he's the devil. The actual devil. It's said that the Scarlet King is an elder god who has the power to conquer and destroy entire worlds, let alone civilizations. What's his beef? Well, he's declared war on creation itself, so not great. The SCP Foundation seems to think that any manifestation of evil is at the bidding of the Scarlet King. So a god as old as understanding who's made it his sole purpose to end creation? I mean, it doesn't sound like a party I want to be at, does it? If you want to know about this SCP, we've got a video all about it on Life's Biggest Questions, basically the home of like all kinds of SCP content.